asshole Reddit's ears. Directly back into the greasy pockets of some Gates Foundation financiers. And then directly back into the frantic final thoughts of early trial Neuralink volunteers, staring at the numb and mumbling vacancies where recently had been their peers. Half of whom are glitching with the memory stuck on pause, and half have zero fucking clue just who they are or why they're here. It's been said that fear is all we have to fear, but that was back before the Basosphere condenser came along, distilling concentrated fear that's diamond pure, crystal clear, oppressor strong, and woven into every single article you read and song they let you hear. And then Elon heard that Jeff enhanced our fears by 86%, and he said, hold my beer. And not a single sheep among the herd would turn their head or say a word, cause they were all too busy begging for the shears, begging for the muzzle, happy just to guzzle, feed, and watch a screen for all their years. Man, to each his own, can't afford a home, but they'll let you have your cozy little ecosphere, where there among your own devices you can break the seventh seal, overthrow the oracles, and slay the seer. All the tomes were burned and all the lips were seared. Shut your eyes and all our lives just disappear. Now blink 'em twice. Welcome to your ecosphere. You don't think I see you crying in your cars, but I do. Sometimes I can feel it at a red light, someone at my side trying to muddle through. See them wiping their eyes in the rear view, like black hole sun in the sky, why the fuck won't you come when I need you? Well, this moment in time is as close as we'll be and as far as I'll meet you. Two windows in between us, new moon in the house of Venus. One stranger who sees you and reads your features knows that your alibi might be tight, but it's not quite leak-proof. So if you're sitting at the light and you're crying in your car, just know that I see you. And it's a 50-50 that I'm bloodshot, gun-shy, once bitten, twice tried, ribs pried wide to the sky till I'm see-through.
That's you, in case you don't recognize yourself.
You don't think I see you struggling to breathe, but I do. I see you stumble in your everyday grief like I do. I try, but I do. I'm twice bitten too. My mind's split in two. My knuckles bright white from the 10 to the 2. And the song in my head is the theme for a fugue, a state of decay through the filter of corporate news, where they edit the grays and the blues. They whitewash the brown till they drown out the natural hues. And then it's just another fact to refuse, that the corporate ladders for hanging the company noose. Consider it one of your perks, after all it's communal in use. So you can come and hang till your legs go limp and they're shaking you loose. Now you watch 5 co-workers opt for the alternate exit, neatly suspended above where you wolf down your food. And your company gets its incentives embellished by harping on wellness, suggesting you'd best take time for your mental health after your 14 hours are through. Like we gave you a bottle to piss in and fixed up a noose on the crossbeam. Christ, what more can we do? So if you struggle to breathe any moment that you aren't asleep, then remember, most of Americans fear for their savings, fear for their shelter, fear for their babies. You aren't the fringe of exception, but rather a perfect example of capital's rule. And you're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. You're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. I see you crying in your cars, but I do. that's how it goes. We won't open our eyes, so we're the last ones to know. We're the last ones alive, kept our enemies close, wondered why we don't thrive, while we're grasping at ghosts, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards from 5.
Count back from 5. The theater on fire, the cast on strike. The studio stock starts taking a dive. The contracts tossed and they're gone with the tide. The heads and execs, their hands are tied. We can't pump this dreck and treat you right. But what do you expect from the industry type who survive by the leeching of bodies and minds? From those who original thoughts never seem to find. So they're gonna reboot ALF before your wages rise. And it gives cause to pause and reflect on the times. If they're losing control of their fools and their mimes, when all those obedient actors who grew their careers by averting their eyes are now holding the line, along with the authors of countless scripts that strengthen the hand of that corporate grip, squeezing our throats till we take the pen and we accept and consent to the corporate drip, till you're all up to date on your pharma du jour, till you got a healthy support for the war on your lips. And now you know that the advertisers need more than a rerun summer full of flashback clips. Enter the scans from the year before, all the days of de-aging and mapping the face, and the hours of actors recording their voices are links in the chains that will bind them in place. Now all of those shows are so easy to make. When they got a drone they control that needs no break, it can bend, it can break, and it's cheaply replaced enough up-to-date films all in one take. And those studios bank on us doing our duty, unhinging our jaws and digesting the fakes, because they know that we'll love how synthetic it tastes. Watch as they edit your features without any trace. Not that there's anything you could do anyway. Now watch as they show you a movie you saying shit you would never say. Dystopia boldly accelerates. Maybe you're only a mold, something to fill with a clone, something that Elon would celebrate. Something they own, something they program and code, something that's woefully able to know its exanimate. Cause it doesn't feel touch over top of the laminate. You will not feel an emotion, but they will not scan and examine it. You and the other consumer contaminants fed on the federal diet of Kiev, Havana, and Tiananmen. I can't be the only one weighing the pros of abandonment. I can't be the only one weighing the pros of abandonment.
Where did you think we'd go? Love, there's nowhere to lie. Guess it's not who you know, more it's what you can hide. Like we're chained to the floor, they're streaming us live while we're watching the war, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards. SWAT team took your neighbor averted day. Watched them as they walked him away. You told yourself extremists come in all different shapes. Met his eyes and lowered your gaze. But is it too late for us to ever change? When we are collecting the dust of better days. They're always watching us, but we're never safe. We're not meant to be safe, not meant to escape. We aren't meant to wake. Sheriff stopped your daughter today. Pepper sprayed her twice in the face. He must have had good reason if he'd treat her that way. At least that's what they've taught you to say. But is it too late for us to ever change? Once we're collecting the dust of better days. And they're always watching us, but we're never safe. We're not meant to feel safe, not meant to escape. We aren't meant to wake. Feds arrived and had you detained. Said you'd made some posts they want changed. Tased you till you felt like you'd forgotten your name, or life before they had you contained. Oh, life before they had you contained. SWAT team took your neighbor today.
Our society and our world are full of these invented and built up and contrived facades. And sometimes some people come along with a hammer and smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
Welcome to the future. Shit where you please. The Wi-Fi's killer, but there's no more bees. So there's hardly any flowers, there are very few trees, and you'll pay $1,000 for some honey for your tea. But we got these awesome collars, mine's an Apple Model 3. It allows for better movement than the Tesla X Elite. It lets you customize the ads that it implants in every dream. And for premium subscribers, doesn't shock you in your sleep. But it doesn't stop there. It can analyze your speech, and if it hears disinformation,
information, then it notifies police. It's a swift re-education, but it knocks you off your feet like your booster every 7th week. I faced the future boldly with 2 eager open eyes, and I picked a couple nuggets up that blew my fucking mind. Like you can taxidermy someone while they're technically alive, and they'll shine when it's election time. See, the Democratic voter base will pay them zero. Never mind if voting for the scarecrow is a vote along their party lines. They could stare into its marble eyes and claim there's something dignified. Unlike real politicians, this one doesn't need an oxygen or kit supply. But its function is the same as those who came before. The goals are never misaligned. It still spends all its working time performing pre-recorded fleecing sessions where it sugarcoats your slow and hungry genocide, while pouring billions into Nazi coffers, all the while selling you the story that we're moments till the MiGs arrive. So fuck it, ask Zelensky if he'll help replace our leaded pipes. Watch a fleet of Penske's show stacks of bills in every size. Guess it only took a black sun and a couple Hiles. Honorary goose step and some Nazi boots a quarter mile, all while Biden sneers his sordid smile. I don't know what was in this morning's vial, but it makes him stare 1,000 yards through all the prompters and the cards like he can smell the nearest child. His eyes are wide and wild, wider than the grave in which another 1,000 families were tossed in as I typed until they rose up to the sky unceremoniously piled. Which sort of flies right in the face of all this network ticker tape where the American economy has superhuman vitals.
And sometimes some people come along with a hammer.
See, I like to think my trial's gonna play like a recital. I'll denounce the world around me and accuse the most entitled, who weaponize their titles, whose pull is something title, who'd starve us all to death to best delight their blighted idol. So they might destroy the record, and I will never get to vinyl. So my word is not immortal, but it's final.
It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
What did you see?
It couldn't have been me, sir. I was front row in my AOC t-shirt, foie gras sucking on a press release, sir. My head down, 4th shot, good little sheep, sir. Sit down, sweetie. The adults are gonna speak first. They trust the science and they're terrified of research. Here to thank our healthcare heroes, they've been feeding to the burnout, feet first. Until suddenly they dip mid-shift, take a header off a bridge. Such a shame, they were really such a sweet nurse. Now they'll never get the card and the cold slice of pizza meant to thank them for their teamwork. Now they'll never get the baggie full of checks mixed, which would be the one reward they'd see for the moms they had to intubate, and the countless cries of grief since we've been haunted by the specter of the C word. Now all the applause for our healthcare heroes rings a very hollow note because we played it out like Freebird. See, add the ones and zeros in our fragile checks and balances, or checks for all the wealthy who have such unholy talents that we think it's patriotic that we all got zero balances. And re-elect Pelosi so she'll face our toughest challenges, which is analogous to water for a drowning man. Nancy disregards our impoverished with a spiteful and dismissive little waving of her withered hand. Cause 500,000 freezing on the streets is Biden's winter plan. And I bet you swore they told you were voting for a different man. But really all you wanted was a different man. It didn't make a fucking difference if he finishes the previous inhabitant's agenda and starts auctioning protected land. Biden's born to leap at any war a donor's check demands. Turns out that you can't cure greed once it infects a man. once they lose respect for human life and focus all their fucking efforts on the oil baron rescue plan. Honey, what are we to Hecuba or Hecuba to us that if she's starving we should give a damn? Why should we be moved to tears if someone isn't eating? We won't even recognize that food is essential to our being. It's just us and motherfucking Israel who will not guarantee that food's a basic human right. Because starvation is our favorite tool of genocide disguised as sanctioned democratic healing. That's me in the corner, losing my religion, gouging out my eyes and then dancing on the ceiling. Jesus fucking Christ, what a feeling.
Hey, what about you, eyeballs? What did you see?
Something else to say, but words have let us all down. We are in the waste now. If we choose to lay down, let them bring our wage down. Nancy, won't you face down, pray? If you find resilience in your faith, it's on all of us to lead the way. It takes all of us to lift the weight. We were told it's normal and required that we suffocate. Wait, I will not be carried to my grave in perfect health and perfectly awake. The earth is not the sweetest of escapes, but the surface is a merciless and purpose-sicken place. Don't stay. Tell him that he doesn't have to stay. Hold his hand and let him slip away. There is nothing here that's worth the wait. Nothing good is waiting in the wings. Don't stay. Oh, don't stay.
There's a difference between peace and liberation, is there not? You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct? Have peace and be enslaved.
Yes.
So peace isn't the answer.
No.
Liberation is the answer.
And we're live. We did it. Welcome. CNN News. Same thing you watch every Wednesday. You know?
Before you start, can you turn on? Can you show our screens?
This,
Yeah, you can.
yes.
Yeah.
And I can remove this. I like how even digitally, they let you recycle the sticky note. You know, that the audience can't see, but Collin can. The thing that tells me to turn on Substack, like, don't close the sticky note. We have to recycle the digital sticky note. You know, like, it's just humorous. What's up, dude? How's life? You know,
My kiddos start tomorrow. My new minions tomorrow.
Minions.
So,
banana.
yeah, so I've been doing home. Huh?
Do you go in dressed as Gru if you have minions? Just like
I mean,
you know.
I mean, that could be a good
scarf.
Halloween costume if I plan that out, but I'm not sure. You know, if my students would necessarily go if dressing up as minions themselves. I'm sure a lot of them, if I were to ask, will have their own ideas of what to dress up for Halloween.
Right.
But if I was able to kind of coordinate that with my class, that would be awesome.
If you could do all minions, but minions if they were on Halloween, right?
Yeah.
Like you have like one minion with like a Thriller suit, you got like one minion as like Black Panther, you got one minion as like, you know, you could do that.
That's actually kind of a cool idea. So I might even suggest that possibly, but
Sure.
We'll see though. But I'll get to know my new students and I'll make that call. But yeah, so yeah, I'm basically back at work. We've had 2 big deaths within the last 2 days. We had Dolly Parton, who passed away yesterday, and as I was at the gym earlier, I found out that Tim Curry is also passed on, and so we're just kind of like, who's the third person that's going to die probably tomorrow or this week?
I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!
One of the most iconic roles of Tim Curry of all time for Red Alert 3 and Red Alert and Red Alert 2. Like, just that dude. Have you ever go watch a compilation of his Red Alert skits? He was having a blast. Like, he was like, no one's gonna see this. Fuck it. You know, like, I'm gonna full send, you know, and just give it everything and like ham it the fuck up. And it's glorious. It's a glorious thing Tim Curry did. So rip Tim Curry, you know.
Yeah. So I told, just as an aside, I told Reef earlier, you have to probably spam his sound clip.
Yeah.
A ton.
Yeah.
Today.
I have. It's like our most used, you know.
Capitalism.
Most used button. I think we just have like a big red button that I can like hit for that, you know?
Because that's our Jesus answer, basically.
Jesus Christ.
Why does our society suck, kids?
Yep, it's
capitalism.
Wow. You know, also his like this
space.
Another iconic like space. You know, he's got a tons of good ones from that.
Oh yeah, he had
a new world order awaits.
That's
Commander.
That's Tim Curry as well.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Horror Picture Show. You should put that on.
Which one?
That's nice.
Rocky Horror Picture Show. There's some great ones from that too.
Oh yeah.
So,
but rest in peace, Tim. Rest in peace, Dolly.
There was another thing he did. He did a like cartoon, like TV cartoon thing with like his voice is
I mean, he did it.
Is that
he did a shit ton of voice acting. That's honestly what I know him for. Like he did a lot of Disney shit. I think it was like I'm thinking maybe Darkwing, like those 90s cartoons on the Disney Channel. I think he did a lot of voice acting on that.
Because I have him. Hold on. Where is it? Which one is it? Because he did Nigel Thornberry.
Nigel Thornberry, for Thornberry's, I know that.
And I have that on the soundboard too. I just don't remember what it is. This. I know which one it is.
Lord Nelson's trousers, it's a Yeti.
That.
Yes.
Yeah. Shout out Yeti. Yeah, it's hard to unsee that. Also in Fern Gully and a bunch of other stuff. Captain Hook.
Yeah, Captain Hook, which I watched as a teen. So actually, I'm just pulling up to see what he did.
He's in one of the Star Wars ones. He's like in the Clone Wars as like Palpatine, I think.
Yeah, he did the Clone Wars. Yep.
Yeah.
Palpatine and Darth Sidious.
Ooh, Darth
He
Sidious.
did Phineas and Herb. He did. Let's see. I'm just trying to think of ones. Obviously.
What's the other one? What's the other?
Jimmy Neutron.
Yep.
Trying to think of more 90s stuff that I would know.
I'm trying to remember what him in the big giant devil costume. What film is that? Legend, something like that.
I think so.
Yeah.
But God, he did a lot of voice acting, like some of these.
And then
more obscure.
Dolly, even though I know everyone's giving Dolly shit over Ukraine stuff and Moderna simping, you know, which sucks to have that lady co-opted like that.
We talked about this before we went live.
Yeah.
I think, you know, like, we are human. We all have our faults, good, bad, and otherwise.
Yeah.
I think, you know, even in that case, I think Dolly thought she was doing
the right thing.
The right thing in terms of helping the world or whatever. But at least, you know, for her, you can make the argument she tried to live, despite her celebrity, she tried to live an unproblematic life as possible. She tried to do as much good as she could. She knew of her status and she knew of her wealth, and she wanted to be a good steward of that wealth by supporting people in need. So yeah, there's a lot of good things you could say about her. I just, you know, like, she wasn't in the news like that. She wasn't in tabloids like that. She lived relatively kind of quiet, at least to me, like kind of quiet. But I think the main thing it's less like, you have the means, help people. That's basically what her politics were. If you were, I think she was probably the one more apolitical in that sense, but in the sense of, look, I have money and I'm blessed by this money, and I want to be able to be a blessing by this money, which, you know, especially if you're living a Christian lifestyle, which we'll get to in a bit, in my mind, that's how you should live. I would argue that's how you should be living anyway, especially if you are in the political realm. Like, you should be attempting to do the most good as possible given your power. And unfortunately, a lot of our politicians use their power for their own means or the means of others, and not necessarily within the means of the people who need it. And we're going to get to those in that way, I guess, in the stories that I will get to tonight.
Yeah.
So
speaking of, what do you
bring? So this is, well, I would argue, yeah, definitely another hidden history segment, but we've talked a lot about religion and faith, I think especially within the last few weeks. And I think I mentioned this maybe at some point in another stream, but I talked about it with you maybe last week or the week or two ago. So this kind of actually connects to the segment I did last year regarding the you know, the origins of, you know, slavery. Like, that's kind of based on like experiments essentially that were done in the Caribbean that was passed on to the United States. Well, I would argue that this probably was a huge part of that. So there is something that's known as the Negro Slave Bible, and you could probably guess what it was used for.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that first. So this is, I would consider this a hidden history segment because I'm sure most people do not know about this. But I think it'll be kind of good to kind of talk about, especially given, you know, a lot of Christians are kind of like, Islam sucks, like, you know, like, and I'm like, the call is coming from inside the house, considering what Christianity has done. So this will be a key example of that, and we're kind of living in that perpetuation, you know, to this day. And what I'll do later, I know I'm going to make Reef mad, but I had nothing else to do. But
Should ask me, I could have given you like 9 things instead of this fucking
sure.
lady. You know?
But once again, Democrats suck, and there's been a lot of talk about Democrats lately, especially today with the leader of the House. It's just another reason of just like, you're just Democrats, you're just giving us people another reason to be Team Couch come midterms.
Yeah.
Like
Taps electoralism won't work sign. Like, again, if these motherfuckers could read, they'd be upset at it. But they can't.
So,
you know,
so Margaret Kimberly a little late. And so, you know, in terms of the AOC woke comment, Margaret Kimberly wrote an article about that. But I think it is important just to kind of show how, once again, Black people, especially when our needs are kind of presented, how we kind of thrown under the bus.
Yeah.
So I do want to kind of get into that a little bit in terms of, you know, what AOC said and the implications of what she said, whether calculated or not. And again, how that will affect the midterms in the next couple of months, in my opinion. And then what did you bring?
Well, I brought a couple of things I don't think people are really talking about. Anduril got a bunch of like military government contracts to increase border security. This was part of that big, beautiful bill, right? And like, there's some ramifications for that. So, you know, it's essentially like flock cameras across our entire border, you know, just different company. You know, Peter-Thiel, Anduril. Are you as much of a nerd as I am to actually know what Anduril is? Like, do you know what Palantir is?
Of course.
Okay, so in the Lord of the Rings, you know Palantir, you know the company, but like the things they're basing the companies on, Palantir being the thing, Saruman, the white wizard, right, uses the Palantir to watch the Fellowship, right?
Okay.
Unbeknownst to him, the Palantir is literally an even more evil entity than Sauron is, and like corrupts him the whole time, right? This is what they named their companies after. Anduril, right, is the sword Aragorn has after the shards of Narsil get put back together. So like the broken sword in the movie, they get remelted down and forged, even though my blacksmith in my brain says that would never happen like that. They would never do that. You don't cast swords. You know, casting swords isn't a thing.
It's a fantasy story, so whatever.
And it's a standard like movie trope of like pouring a sword into a mold. Like, guys, it's not.
Right.
That's like only like bronze swords. Everything else is actually blacksmith. But you know, what do I know? But yeah, it's, you know, them being like super nerds about the whole thing. I just find it like the fact that they named it Palantir when they should know it's like the most evil entity in like the whole story, you know? That's fine. It's the cool little magic orb he sees through. Like, you know, what do you mean? Like, oh no, it's just a thing that corrupts him completely to the dark side. But what do I know? You know, I've just read the Silmarils and the fucking, you know, I'm a nerd, Collin. You know, it's like all that shit painted on vans in the 80s, like that shit. I'm into it. you know?
Right.
So, but, meow, is it time for you to go? You want out? Okay, give me like 2 seconds. Okay. Sorry, Mr. LaForge is asking to be taken to engineering. Anyway, should we get started?
We should, but while you take care of your
Yes.
So those of you in the chat, welcome. Most of you are fam, I'm sure. Those of you who are not, welcome again. YouTube is shadow banned us to high heaven. We don't get a lot of money from AdSense. Well, we wouldn't get a lot of money anyway. If you gave a super chat, they will take 30% of your money. We don't want you doing that. So if you want to support this channel and our show, you can scan the QR code you see on your screen, or you can go to the Ko-fi link you see at the bottom of your screen. If you're in the YouTube chat and live, you can type in !donate, all one word, and the Ko-fi link will pop up, and you can click it, and you can give as much or as little as you want. $1 will help, just so we're able to pay the bills for our network. You can also give on PayPal, Substack, Patreon, and Cash App, especially if you want to give monthly. That will be extremely big help. And anyone who gives at any point will be on our Wall of Fame. Those of you who are in the page are like our MVPs, people, the guys who give generously. And your name will be featured in our closing credits at the end of the show as a thank you for your support. And of course, we do this out of love. We don't, not to say we don't want your money, but we understand that times might be hard for a lot of you, especially now as we're heading into the fall. The free way to support us is liking, subscribing, and sharing our content so that we can kind of beat the algorithm, maybe, in terms of having more people watch us. And as always, we love you and thank you for your support.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, dude. If you've never looked into like the deep lore of Lord of the Rings, it's ridiculous. It's like practically an entire religion in and of itself.
Sure. Yeah.
It's wild. Tolkien was like, it's all, his war experiences and like, it was around that time. I'm trying to remember who else he was talking to, like all this like fairy stuff around that time, right? Where it's like the advent of photography is happening and like, people are making up like fairies and ghosts and all this stuff and the whole thing, that he was influenced by. But
I nerd out when it comes to stuff Evangelion, but you know that. So
very similar like level of
that's
even
my
more
nerding
so.
out.
Even more so. It's like, dude, he wrote the Silmarils are like a Bible for the Lord of the Rings. Like it explains there's a whole god hierarchy and like talks about how the rings got there and stuff way before all the rings, and it's craziness. I know way too much, about it. It's an interesting thing to look into though. Bunch of YouTube stuff where it's like deep dives on it, But anyway, you ready to get started? Speaking of religions,
I am ready.
Cool.
Yeah. So first story tonight, a little more religion talk. This also kind of extends to the slave codes segment that I did last year at around this time, where we kind of discussed how a lot of our origins of slavery in the United States were based upon practices that were done in the Caribbean, notably Barbados, the island of my ancestors, shout out to my dad's side of the family. So I thought this would be kind of interesting. This would be interesting in terms of, I think this essentially is an extension of that. So I think it will be kind of good to kind of discuss it but definitely talk about in terms how religion is used to the idea of religion or faith or whatever you want to, however you want to phrase it, is supposed to liberate. And how, in this case, the Negro slave Bible was used as a means of control. So, in very obvious ways, as we'll get to in a second. But let's play this clip. I forgot the name of this guy, but he is at the Museum of the Bible, which is based in my city of Washington, D.C. So he'll give kind of a preview of what this Bible is, and we'll get into it a little deeper.
I wish I could fix it to where I don't have this version of the YouTube player. That'd be great.
Sure.
My name is Anthony Schmidt, and I am Senior Curator at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. We are in our newest exhibit, or one of our newest exhibits, titled The Slave Bible, Let the Story Be Told. The formal name is Parts of the Holy Bible Selected for Use among the Negro Slaves in the British West India Islands. And it was published in 1807 in London by the London-based firm Law & Gilbert. Well, we think it was most likely produced by a missionary organization named the Society for the Conversion of Negro Slaves. And this was one of many missionary societies that popped up around 1800, dedicated to spreading Christianity around the globe, but mostly within the British colonies in Africa, Asia, and of course the Caribbean. And so this book was produced by the society for use by their missionaries who were going to islands such as Jamaica and Barbados to establish schools and churches, and with the intention of converting enslaved Africans and educating them. And so this book was part of a broader program that they believed would improve the lives of enslaved Africans both materially and spiritually.
That's something off the bat, just the idea like they wanted to use this Bible to essentially civilize the savages, so to speak. That's what I got immediately. It's like, oh, you motherfuckers need to be cleaned up from whatever indigenous lifestyle you were living, and in order to be in the West, you have to. Well, funny enough, they say they want to be more civilized, but then they still treated even worse shit than they were, like, than the countries that they were from. So again, just the idea of the more, like they said, convert. I would argue propagandize. Probably would be a better word in order to, control their slaves. So we'll actually get into more specifics of this Bible. So fortunately, we had to use mainstream media for this. I couldn't find anything else that is worth, but I think at least this is kind of a good start for you guys if you want at least to get some basic information. If you want to know more, you could. So this was actually written back in 2018 by Michel Martin, where she writes, Slave Bible from the 1800s omitted key passages that could incite rebellion. So Michel writes, on display now at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. is a special exhibit centered on a rare Bible from the 1800s that was used by British missionaries to convert and educate slaves. What's notable about this Bible is not just its rarity, but its content, or rather lack of content. It excludes any portion of text that might inspire rebellion or liberation. Anthony Schmidt, who you saw in the clip earlier, Associate Curator of Bible and Religion in America at the museum, says the first instance of this abridged version titled Parts of the Holy Bible Selected for the Use of Negro Slaves in the British West India Islands was published in 1807. About 90% of the Old Testament is missing. That's a huge chunk of it.
Yep.
And 50% of the New Testament is missing, Schmidt says. Put in another way, there are 1,189 chapters in a standard Protestant Bible. This Bible contains only 232.
Because I was going to ask if they had, added stuff.
We'll get into that.
Okay.
Schmidt says passages that could have prompted rebellion were removed. For example, there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither bond nor free, there is neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Christ Jesus. Galatians 3, verse 28. And verses that reinforce the institution of slavery, including the most famous pro-slavery verse that many pro-slavery people would have cited, said Schmidt, were kept. Servants, be obedient to them that are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, in singleness of your heart, as unto Christ. Ephesians 6, verse 7. It was intended for use among enslaved Africans in the British West Indies, which is modern-day Caribbean, so Jamaica, Barbados, Antigua, he said. Schmidt says there are several theories behind the editing and omitting of so much of the Standard Bible, but the main thought stems from the fact that farmers in the West Indies were opposed to missionaries working with the enslaved Africans on their land. This can be seen as an attempt to appease the planter class, saying, look, we're coming here. We want to help uplift materially these Africans here, but we're not going to be teaching them anything that could incite rebellions, Schmidt says. Coming in and being able to educate African slaves would prepare them one day for freedom, but at the same time would not cause them to seek it more aggressively. The Bible is on loan from Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee, and has been in the museum since it opened in November 2017. The university says only 3 copies of this Bible are known to exist, and the one that on display in Washington is the only copy in the US. Schmidt says the museum decided to create the exhibit, The Slave Bible, Let the Story Be Told, because of the attention visitors were already giving it the artifact. From the very beginning, people have been shocked to see it, Schmidt says. It's drawn a lot of interest. In fact, of all the items we have on display here, it's probably been the most talked about among our guests. While the exhibit tells the story of what's inside the Bible, it also gives people a chance to reflect and respond to the material. One of the points of the exhibit is that time and place really shaped how people encounter the Bible, Schmidt says. What I mean by that is people don't look at the Bible or approach the Bible or read the Bible in a vacuum. They're shaped by their social and economic context. As people come from a multitude of backgrounds, Schmidt says how they encounter the Bible can vary greatly from person to person, and as such, the exhibit will affect them all differently. I hope people take away a greater appreciation for that and maybe even a self-reflection to be more cognizant of why you read something a certain way, he said. If people can better appreciate that, then maybe they can better emphasize with others. So, a couple of things here. I mean, for me, this makes so much sense, given what I've kind of discussed on this show and kind of what we've talked about in the past in terms of, how slaves were essentially propagandized into, living in the West and being brutalized in the West, and having the Bible essentially be a tool for propaganda to kind of, again, keep slaves in line. So this makes a lot of sense to me. The one thing that, not to say I disagree with Schmidt in terms of what he said, I do agree, but I feel he could, and I think he was trying to be nice and kind of a little more nuanced in this approach. I actually will kind of go a little stronger than that, in the sense of, this is a result, I mean, you talked about this last week, the idea that Christianity was essentially like, Ben picked and choose which chapters were in there and which ones were omitted for whatever purpose that they wanted to seek within their congregations. And in this case, this Bible was essentially ripped apart. And again, the idea was, and we kind of see it today, because more than likely, not more than likely, this was the case, the slaves will go to church on a Sunday, and then the white preacher would read from it, from this Bible, and they're not going to give any nuance or context in terms of, what the chapter was written for and like the audience and all that kind of stuff. They're just going to read it word for word, and especially these parts that kind of in their mind, advocated for slavery. It's like, look, the Bible says, that you have to be obedient to your master and tolerate it. And then the idea is like, if you work hard and take your licks, then one day when you pass on, you'll get your reward in heaven, which again, this is kind of where, in a lot of ways, the prosperity gospel comes from. So the idea like you have to suffer on this earth in order for you to gain your riches, like once you pass on. And I said last week, I am not the type that is going to wait to get my riches. I'm getting those riches now. So, but it's the idea of like, and you know what? Like we see that common theme among the major religions in terms of suffering, brings about, like empathy or whatever else. But we never talk about suffering, how it could be used as a form of exploitation among people too. It's the idea of like, oh, suffering is a good thing, but almost to my detriment, which is not okay.
Yeah.
So,
see, and I've never bought
yeah,
that. Like the Buddhists do the same thing. The all life is suffering, and it's good for you and whatever. And it's like not really. Like yes and no. I think it's a bit of a like a lot of people say that like just for you to accept the suffering you have. Where it's like you probably shouldn't necessarily. Like people mean that. They mean like, oh, you should suffer a little, go work out, that'll make your life better if you have some adversity, but like suffering in general, we could probably try to limit that as much as possible,
Well, here's the thing. As a teacher, we're kind of teaching our students the idea of persistence when things are hard. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But this isn't that. Like, and again, within the context of our capitalist society, it's the idea of like, and this is, and especially for me who has worked in Christian organizations before, it's almost the belief like, and I'm saying this from more of a monetary standpoint, like, oh, you must, like, in order to work for Christ, you must make less money. Like, and almost kind of be downtrodden to have a better understanding of the communities that you're working for, in light of Christianity, which I never bought into that at all. Like, and especially for a lot of my friends at the time who, I was working, teaching like preschools, nonprofits. Meanwhile, a lot of my friends who were Christian were in business and, like with jobs that made higher incomes. They weren't necessarily in the fields that I was in, but yet, and they weren't necessarily, to be fair, I'm not sure what their personal situations were, but at least in my mind, they weren't suffering, monetarily or whatever else. Like, so it just seemed to me just kind of like almost a double standard almost. Like,
yeah,
it was okay for certain people to live this life where, you lack the money yourself, but then at the same breath, you have all these other people who use their faith as a means to gain wealth for themselves. And wherever you give tithe to your church or give, like, to an organization or a charity or whatever you want to call it, fine, whatever, but yeah, it's just the idea of suffering is meant like to the point where you almost kind of unaliving yourself in a sense that somehow that's a virtue that all of us must reach. And again, I never bought into that, like, and more, I think especially for me, it's like, if you're talking about it in terms of self-care, like how can you serve your community if you are not being taken care of properly? Like I said this before, like I worked, a nonprofit, like over 20 years ago, where like I was the director of the daycare, and granted, I wasn't in control of the pay at all, but I didn't make that much, but I wasn't starving as a single guy.
Right.
The people that I supervised, at the time, as a teacher, like maybe an assistant, I forget, but like some of them were getting paid like $8 an hour. This was back in what, 2000, like late aughts.
Yeah.
Like $8 an hour.
Which would have been like minimum
that's
wage
in our
at the time.
standard, just minimum wage for the job that you're doing. Like there were some of my teachers had to live on like government assistance in order to survive. And it's like you expect and you want them to teach young children, homeless children at that. Like I couldn't hire anyone, like at least the people that I wanted who had the skills in order to work with the homeless population for that amount of money. Like it was like that was the hardest thing, is trying to hire people and keep them there, because the salary was way too low. But it was the idea of like, oh, you're working for Christ, so like you almost had to take this money, like this salary, in order for you, to work here. And like again, I was making low wages too, relatively, given the work I was doing, but it was enough for me at the time to, I wasn't starving. But some of the people who I had to supervise were, in a lot of ways. So that, like I never bought into that at all. But
yeah.
But anyway, I'm done with this. But again, I think it just makes a lot of sense to me. It already made a lot of sense to you. But actually, as I said earlier, it's funny how a lot, I guess, not even MAGA Christians, like even among people that I've known in the Christian circles that I was in, have an issue with Muslims. And it's like, oh, they do this, they do that, and the other, they're kind of terrorizing the country, they're taking over. And yet you have something like this, which is very apparent of what has been done in the name of Christianity. And now, to be fair, I'm sure a lot of Christians in this country will not know about this, but they're not going to acknowledge the fact of how Christianity has been used to, again, in light of capitalism in the West, oppress the global South, and in some ways still are, probably a little more subtly, but it's still happening. So, so take it for what it's worth. But as I said, the call is coming from inside the house, when a lot of these Christians are kind of calling out Islam, and yet they're not looking and reflecting on their own faith and how it's oppressed others in this country. So I think it's kind of rich that they're kind of looking at Islam as a problem, when Christianity itself has had its own problems here and still. But what do I know? I'm just, I guess you can call me a Gnostic who might be a little more disgruntled in terms of what I know now and how faith has been used to oppress people. But
I was where
anyway.
you were once, and then I realized if there was the agnostic part, I ended up getting over that too, because it's like, to me at this point, if there was a God, he's such a vengeful asshole, that I'm like, good. Like, I'm good on even thinking about such a fucking dickhead. Like, you got to think about what he's capable of making if he's made, like, dude, there's parasites and stuff that just attack toddlers for no reason, like, the amount of vile stuff that, like, attacks the innocent, for no other reason than, and, like, all you'd be told is, like, well, God works in mysterious ways. Well, fuck him then.
Well,
Well,
here's my take on this. Like, we talk about God as an entity in the ether somewhere. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But my thing is, the idea of God, Jesus, and all that is, again, knowing the scriptures, Jesus is God made flesh. The God became human, lived among us to show us how to live. So, and the idea that people are called Christians essentially means little Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is we're essentially are gods in our own right, especially now given the technology that we possess. So
See, and I
my
prefer
take is
being much more humble about it. Like
exactly
we're
my point.
we're
That's
we're
exactly my point.
animals if we treat each other as such, you know, like
But you kind of got into the point that I was going to make. It's that
yeah.
you essentially are a god among yourself and ourselves. So how do you choose to live that life? Especially if you call yourself a Christian. Are you going to live out in the life as a little Christ? Like in the way that he lived? Or are you going to use your faith to exploit people or to gain wealth for yourself? You know? So I think and that's kind of how I kind of interpret it. It's like,
You're
how can
quoting,
I, and especially,
by the way, you're quoting one of the Satanists' like commandments, like practically verbatim, which I just find funny if you ever go look into that. You know, like it's like, you know, there is no God except yourself. You know, like that's literally one of their commandments. You know,
well, if you look at the Genesis story,
yeah,
you know, like Adam and Eve, the issue was when the issue was with Adam and Eve eating the fruit
yeah,
was if you eat the fruit, you become like God. That was the issue. Like, so in eating the fruit, we're able to be gods in our own right. So, like with the idea of us having free will and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how I interpret it. So it's the idea of like, as I don't want to say God but so maybe like a pseudo God, maybe might be a good way to kind of phrase it. How do you choose to live your life? Do you choose to live it in a way that is going to help others, or are you going to use that life in order to exploit? You know, and that's kind of how I interpret it, and you know, in terms of scripture, you know, because we talked about how the first 5 books of the Bible are essentially mythical stories. So it's the idea of like what you are able to learn based on those stories. And my take is that you are essentially, as you said, a God unto yourself. How do you choose to live that life especially as a Christian, in terms of what you know or supposed to know about the life that Jesus lived? So that's kind of how, and even though I'm not in the church anymore, that's kind of how I view my life, especially in terms of how I view my students. How can I be not, well, in that sense, a god to them, but in a way of how can I serve them in a way of living a humble, empathetic life in terms of helping the people around me who, with my status and all the things, like, again, we kind of mentioned Dolly before, kind of in a similar way, how you're going to use your status and your means to help others, so I think that's in my mind what that kind of leads to me in my own reflection. But I know others don't necessarily think in that way, in terms they just hear it and read it and just like, okay, whatever. But I don't know. I think, again, it just kind of shows how the Bible has been used to manipulate and exploit people, and even today. And we need to look at the Bible with a more critical eye. Like, if you're willing to have the Bible in schools, like some MAGA want to, like, again, I said this before, are you going to willing to have all the stories in the Bible that talk about violence and sex and like all that kind of stuff for elementary kids to read. You know, you want the Bible in there. You're trying to get rid of books that kind of talk about these things. You know, not to say I'm not necessarily promoting that you should have those books in schools, but you're willing to have the Bible in there. Like, are you willing to have the full version of it? Or are you going to, you know, kind of have it censored? Case in point, like this Bible, that doesn't talk about that kind of stuff, that kind of, you know, omits a lot of the stuff that make it what it is. So, I don't know. But we'll be interested to hear what you guys think in the comments or in the chat. And telling stories like these is why we are suppressed as hell in the algorithm. So if you want to support us so we're able to talk about more segments, especially more hidden history segments like this, you can scan the QR code you see on your screen, or you can go to the Ko-fi link you see at the bottom of your screen. And if you're in the YouTube chat and live, you can type in ! donate, all one word, and the Ko-fi link will pop up. You can give as little as much as you want. You can also give on Cash App, PayPal, Substack, and Patreon. All those links are always in the description of the show. And if you can't give financially, that's okay. Please like, subscribe, and share our content to help fight the suppression that we see on YouTube. And make sure you leave a comment and let us know what you think of these segments. And if there are any hidden history segments that you think we should report on, let us know on Twitter or whatever else in our social media links. And help us get to 5K so we're able to reach out to more people who can view our content. And thanks for watching.
Well, chat had things to say.
Yeah, a lot of things to say.
That's what happens when you talk about religion. Everyone puts their 2 cents in. You know. But let me go back up. Golden Monarch, even Wall Street and other similar entities have claimed they read the Bible, they believe in God, etc. There's a lot of there's a lot of evidence that most churches in the U.S. have taken money from Mossad isn't real, which we've covered, that like manipulation. So, I mean, that's partially because religion exploits community and organization. I say exploit for lack of a better word. You know, it's just part of their system at this point. But, you know, it's just an avenue that then also, if you want to control organization and community, if you fit yourself into that, you know. But yeah, I just don't like part of it means the superstitious like mysticism of everything that people want to hold on to. Like, I find that frustrating. Mainly because I just feel like it's you deluding yourself, you know, and like not wanting to base yourself in reality and what you can verify is true. Not that I'm saying I know everything, you know, and the way the world works and universe works, but
no. But
I feel like I'm gonna go based off what I can verify, you know.
Yeah, but in my mind, again, I'm of the mindset of in this reality, especially given our state of the world right now.
Yeah.
You know, how can you use your faith to be able to, one, better yourself? But the idea in bettering yourself, you're able to better others around you. Like, that's my mind, the basics.
I would just ask you to better yourself and others around you. Like, I don't even necessarily need you to use your faith to do that.
Well, I
if
think
that's
for
how you're
some
going to
people,
do
they
that,
might,
fine.
Well,
You
for
know.
some people might need that. You don't. Do you need to have that? No.
No.
But for some people, it helps. And if you need that to help you, fine. But as I've said before, you have to read the Bible with a critical eye. Like, because again, you have to read the Bible in a certain context. You have to be able to kind of look at it, dissect it, you know, kind of understand, you know, like the nuance of why it was written, who was written for, you know, all the things that most churches do not teach.
Don't even get close.
I'm sure
to
a lot of
teaching.
pastors don't even. Right. unless you go to seminary, and even that, depending where you go, can be incorrect unless if you read it in the original Greek or Hebrew.
Yeah, the original.
Or actually Aramaic.
Aramaic, right.
Right.
Yeah.
And even in the Greek, like there's...
See, that's the issue
thing.
I have. This starts with fucking canonization, right? All those books previously were just collections of stuff that weren't necessarily meant to be together. Like it was collections of stories that were, gathered by disciples, like, which we all know how that, that got like all these storylines from pagan religions and Egyptian gods and like, they Mesopotamian stuff, all that stuff, look, humans want to explain the world around them. And when things are unexplainable to them, people put all sorts of things in there to explain it. There's a term, Collin, it's called the God of the Gaps. You heard this term? Right?
Yes.
It's based off of, I think it was Newton, right? Who, like, when writing his thing on the planets, was like, I don't know why they spin this way. Right? Like, he didn't understand the fabric of space-time and how gravity functioned and whatever, right? So he didn't know. So he just chalked it up to, oh, well, that's got to be, like a mystical power I don't understand. Right? And like, that's my, like, I wish people would assume that it's not that it's probably some explainable thing, that falls within the laws of physics, or at least some way to explain and, where it doesn't fall into the line of understandable physics, which that's a thing when you get into like the, quantum whatever, but like there's a lot of that shit where I'm just like, ugh, can we not, So, and that's just me being, grumpy about it. A Chord Lord, most Satanists are just contrarians generally. Like, it's mainly just a organization that pushes back on like religion in school, and growing up with religion in school, you know how many times I said the Lord's Prayer before football games? I can still recite it, like, why it ends with what time is it game time? I don't know what the church was thinking, but, like, I'm surprised you didn't have to do Hail Marys too, but whatever. I don't know. I don't mind it so much. So, like, there's some parts of it that are just like community and team building and, camaraderie and all that stuff, which is fine. Like, that's the part that people point to when you go, religion's bad. They're like, yeah, but what about this and this? And I'm like, that's not mutually exclusive. You can do those things without that very easily. In fact, plenty of people get away with it without doing that. But anyway, I try not to be too militant atheist because it really fucks with people's heads when I tell them there's no meaning to anything. They're like, what do you mean there's no reason for... It's like, bro, the reason is whatever you want it to be. Like, don't worry about it. You exist. Let's just be happy with that. And, enjoy your existence as best as you can. And don't worry about it so much. As Alan Watts, literally, this was like, and I love the people who haven't read later Alan Watts, who are trying to make everything spiritualism and spiritual whatever. And, there's like later in life, after he like went to Japan and all that stuff and did all that like Taoist, like Shintoism, he was like, and maybe don't worry about it. Like, you just exist. You're gonna be all right. So
yeah.
But anyway, you ready for our next one? I ready.
Yeah.
Julio. Let's do cool. All right. Collin, you've read 1984, yes?
Yes.
Cool. Terrible ending. Ending is awful.
Yes.
But it does leave it open-ended, that ending, right? Like, that book is still out there at the end. His diary or whatever. Yeah. If Hollywood had its way, there'd be a sequel to 1984. You know? Like, but anyway, so I found this from Derek Bros, one of the Independent Media Alliance. I hope we get that right. With like T-Lav and Whitney and all those cats. And he is going to write about stuff that I don't think really people are paying attention to, that we've been screaming about a while, especially with the other side of the like party coin, the libertarians and Republicans who want border security for some reason, which I never understood from the libertarians. Like, what, you want more government outreach over an invisible line in the sand? That doesn't sound like what libertarians would do, you know? Like, I don't think they would necessarily care about imaginary borders, but clearly, you know, it's mainly their excuses like resource management, right? You know, we can't have all these people, we don't have enough stuff. I mean, we do, though. Like, we kind of do. Globally, we have enough stuff. Imagine if we shared all those resources. Libertarians, imagine. Imagine what we could accomplish. Anyway, Peter-Thiel funded company Anduril to triple the number of autonomous surveillance towers along the U.S.-Mexican border. The expansion of autonomous surveillance towers will come at a cost of $1 billion to the American taxpayer, funds that were originally allocated under Trump's Big Brother bill. I mean, sorry, Big Beautiful bill, right? You know, isn't that the bill? So, little play on words. I liked it, little alliteration. But Derek writes, in June, the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, released a new report that detailed how the Department of Homeland Security has contracted with Anduril Industries, a Peter-Thiel funded company, to nearly triple the number of surveillance towers along U.S. borders. The report outlines the plan to increase the number of surveillance towers from 830 to 2,300 by 2034. The new GAO report describes the Integrated Surveillance Towers program that currently consists of 803 fielded towers located along U.S. borders that detects items of interest such as people or vehicles. Now notice, Collin, this is from, they're expecting this by 2034. Do you think that there might be Democratic presidents installed between now and then?
God knows at this point.
I mean, I would like to think. Do you think any of them are going to do anything to repeal this type of surveillance state?
Absolutely not.
Even if it's about, like, you know, border issues and immigration issues?
No.
Okay, just making sure. No. Just making sure we're on the same page. They're all on the same page. You know.
No.
It's how's it? What is it again?
Capitalism.
Oh, that's right. Got it. Oligarchic capitalism. Just making sure we understand where we're at. The IST program includes towers from 4 legacy systems, including Autonomous Survey Towers, AST. And AST is a solar-powered surveillance tower. Sound familiar? Anybody? Anyone recognize that kind of technology? Okay. DHS says can provide autonomous surveillance operations 24 hours per day, 365 days a year. The towers are equipped with radar, optical, and thermal cameras. According to the GAO report, in August 2024, DHS approved the purchase of up to 42 additional ASTs. DHS has previously approved Customs and Border Protection's request to purchase up to 133 additional towers between 2022 and 23. The report states that the program should be completed by March 2034, with 2,000 deployed by that date. So, the GAO was established in 1921 to serve as an independent, a nonpartisan agency that audits the federal government. The GAO releases annual reports on key issues and details its finding to Congress. Man, I wonder if that's been like completely gutted and destroyed and co-opted and manipulated. The EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to digital privacy and rights, called the expansion of border surveillance a digital dumpster fire for human rights and civil liberties. It's not just surveillance towers, drones, aerostats, surveillance vehicles, ground sensors, game cameras, and license plate readers, and humanoid robots, and drone dogs, and, droidicas that roll in and put up a bubble shield and then shoot you with a Gatling gun. Centaur robots, running out of dystopian nightmare fuel that we've seen recently, Collin. I'm sure they'll come up with something, giant worm robots underneath your cities in every major town. I don't know. License plate readers are also game cameras, and license plate readers are also part of the vast taxpayer-funded infrastructure that threatens all those who live, work, or seek refuge in the borderlands, the EFF wrote. In response to the GAO report, this technology isn't exclusive to U.S. federal agencies. It's also deployed by state and local law enforcement and even by governments on the Mexican side. The EFF also noted that these rapidly expanding surveillance technologies place residential neighborhoods in Arizona within the sight of the towers, making them capable of spying on homes on both sides of the border. So, Collin Big Brother is watching at all times. So just keep that in mind when you go about your daily business. The GAO report notes that the contract for construction of the autonomous surveillance towers went to guess who, Care Bear? Anduril Industries. Anduril was funded by Trump donor Palmer Luckey with funding from Palantir co-founder Peter-Thiel. They are one of several Thiel-associated companies that have seen their stars rise under Trump 2.0. The Last American Vagabond has previously reported how numerous acolytes of Thiel are or were serving in the second Trump admin, including numerous employees of Anduril. So this revolving door of private contractors and, politics. Yay! Stuff we've been talking about for fucking decades. One such example is Trace Stevens, co-founder and chair of Anduril Industries. According to Bloomberg, Trump and his team have consulted with Trace Stevens. Stevens is a partner at venture capital firm Founders Fund, which was organized by Peter Thiel, Ken Howery, and Luke Nosek in early 2005. Stevens also worked for Thiel's Palantir Technologies. In December 2024, Anduril, along with Palantir, SpaceX, and OpenAI, announced a partnership on U.S. military contracts. The move marked the latest efforts by the technocrats to replace the old guard of the military-industrial complex. Companies like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Boeing. So more
capitalism.
Yay! Yay, capitalism. As part of that effort, Anduril is aiming to be the main provider of autonomous surveillance towers along the border. As far back as July 2020, Anduril was awarded a contract by CBP to set up over 200 mobile surveillance towers in border communities. The surveillance towers use an Anduril AI software known as Lattice that automatically detects, classifies, and tracks people and vehicles from miles away. During the day and at night, Anduril describes Lattice as a software platform that, quote, takes data from disparate and distributed sensors, feeds, and systems and moves this data into a single integration layer. Dude, I love how they just, the language they use to, describe, oh yeah, we take all the footage and put it in one place, so that we can, assess it for problematic individuals. Over the last couple of years, Anduril has secured numerous contacts with the U.S. government to build weapons of war and surveillance tools. In October 2024, towards the end of the Biden administration, Anduril announced what's this number, Collin? $249,978,466. Like,
Yep.
for more than 500 of their Roadrunner MS and additional pulsar electronic warfare capabilities. In 2023, Anduril unveiled their Roadrunner system and their Pulsar family of AI-enabled electronic warfare systems aimed at combating the growing threat of unmanned aerial systems, or drones. In 2026 alone, Anduril has received at least 3 contracts with the U.S. government. In January, the U.S. Marine Corps awarded Anduril a $23.9 million contract to deliver more than 600 Bolt-M systems. In March, Anduril partnered with the U.S. Army to consolidate the procurement and management of the company's commercially available technology. The 10-year contract has a total estimated value of up to $20 billion. Anduril signed a contract with the Air Force for the production phase of the Collaborative Combat Aircraft Program in June. As part of the arrangement, Anduril will deliver a set of production FQ-44 semi-autonomous fighter aircraft. Yay! Most recently in July, Anduril celebrated production of the first Ohio-made YFQ-44A model, an autonomous drone known as the Fury. This is what that looks like, for those who like visual reference. That's just an autonomous fighter jet, Collin. I don't know if you know what those look like, but that's what this is. You know, like probably capable of delivering the same amount of payload that a normal F-16, F-25 can deliver, right? Just in an autonomous, smaller, stealthier option. Clearly, Anduril's military-industrial complex partnership with Palantir, SpaceX, and OpenAI is proving quite successful. It's worth noting that the funding for the autonomous surveillance towers is coming in part from funds allocated by Trump's controversial Big Beautiful Bill, or more correctly, the Big Brother Bill. To be perfectly accurate, the funding came from the pocket of American taxpayers and then was taken by the federal government under duress before being distributed to companies like Anduril instead of, you know, infrastructure, trains, healthcare, education, you know, food programs. I mean, like, pick a thing, you know, went here instead.
Right.
So the BBB set aside $30 billion for digital modernization efforts involving artificial intelligence and biometric surveillance. The bill gave Immigration and Customs Enforcement $2.5 billion specifically for AI systems, biometric data collection, and digital case tracking. Under the heading U.S. Customs and Border Protection Tech, vetting activities and other efforts to enhance border security, the bill gave $637 million for the deployment of technology relating to biometric entry and exit systems under Section 7208 of the Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention Act of 2004. So they're pulling in, you know, Patriot Act stuff along with this. So do you remember what Patriot Act did? Like, allowed for surveillance of American citizens, you know,
right?
Like using their phone lines and all that stuff back then. That was a big deal to a lot of people. Now they're doing it through the integrated surveillance grid and using that as an excuse. So does this have the video? Yes. TLAV, it will be by air, by land, and by sea, according to Trump. So that's not just immigrants. Welcome to your freedom, MAGA biometric tracking system. And Whitney Webb, hope Trump supporters will soon catch on to how the virtual border wall being built by companies backed by Peter-Thiel is meant to serve as a Trojan horse for digital ID by not requiring not just foreigners entering the U.S., but any American. So, yeah, this is stuff that, you know, the IMA, Independent Media Alliance, has been talking about for a minute, as have we, when in regards to any of the MAGA support, you know, of things like this, you know, and just general push for border security, you know, which, like, right. Remember when we covered Biden's, like, making it much more difficult to immigrate here? Like, and like making border security like a thing for him too. I forget the specifics of how that happened, but it's like, I hate when like, you know, right wingers are like, yeah, well, the border security Democrats have never been. It's like, no, you haven't been paying attention. Like, they absolutely did. Obama was deporter in chief. You know, like, what do you mean? Like, I still think it's a bad thing. You know? So, anyway, let's listen to this fucking egghead.
Number 8, we will finally complete the biometric entry-exit visa tracking system, which we need desperately.
Desperately, it's so good.
For years, Congress has required biometric entry-exit visa tracking systems, but it has never been completed. The politicians are all talk, no action, never happens, never happens. Hillary Clinton, all talk. Unfortunately, when there is action, it's always the wrong decision. Do you ever notice? In my administration, we will ensure that this system is in place. And I will tell you, it will be on land, it will be on sea, it will be in air. We will have a proper tracking system.
So, yeah, you know.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
I like how we're still doing, I mean, we're still doing this. I like, he's practically Kamala Harris. Like,
do not come.
You know?
Right.
Like, what are we doing? I find it silly, dude. You know? So, the section also states that the funds may only be used for the procurement or deployment of surveillance towers after they have been tested and accepted by U.S. Border Patrol. The mention of a biometric entry-exit system and surveillance towers is perfectly in line with the long-term plans of the U.S. government and Donald Trump during his first administration. In fact, Derek's argued since Trump's election in 2016 that the issue of immigration would be used to divide the masses and help usher in the final stages of the American police state, as have we, Derek. The types of technological encroachment, facial recognition, retina scanning have often been known as smart or virtual border wall. The idea is that these technologies can serve the purpose of Trump's long-promised border wall without the cost of building an actual physical barrier. The concept was supported by Trump and the Biden admin in February 2021. Derek reported that more than 40 privacy, immigrant rights, and civil liberty organizations called on the Biden administration to abandon a bill that would extend the Trump administration border policy, particularly the ongoing creation of a biometric wall. The letter came in response to the U.S. Citizen Act of 2021, which had directed DHS to implement new biometric and aerial surveillance technologies at ports of entry along the Mexico border. While the bill did not become law, the concerns about surveillance along U.S. borders continue. The federal government and courts have consistently ruled in favor of the so-called border search exception that allows search and seizures by agents of the government without a warrant within 100 miles of the border. Okay? Collin?
Mm-hmm.
It's the map.
Yes, sir.
It's the map. It's the map. It's the map. So, do you live in 100 miles from a border? Let's look. Like, yes, all of us pretty much. Yes, everybody. Like, yeah, kind of. Unless you're like somewhere in here, you know? Like, but don't worry, they'll get you too, Midwest. They're coming for you too, Midwest. You know? Like, everybody. So, yeah, I thought this was like nearly 2 out of 3 people live within the 100-mile border zone, which is an insane stat, by the way. You know? Like, so, yay. In fact, this belief was just reaffirmed in July when the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit ruled that manual searches of cell phones at the border are routine and thus exempt from the requirement of individualized suspicion under the Fourth Amendment. So your amendments mean nothing. You have no rights. Like, This is the world we live in. However, it is not only along the border where Americans are subject to surveillance. In 2024, the GAO released a report warning that the DHS and associated federal law enforcement agencies are using more than 20 types of surveillance technologies against the American public without a warrant and with limited privacy protections. Every year since the attacks of September 11th, Americans have been forced to endure more and more surveillance measures from the federal government, as well as countless state and local law enforcement agencies as we approach the 25th anniversary of the 9/11 false flag. It's more important than ever in the American public to ask, are we really free if we no longer have privacy? The answer is no, of course not. Were we ever truly free anyway? Thoughts, Care Bear?
I mean, I've said this, but it's almost like our politicians are waiting for us to clap their cheeks, and not in a good way, but they're ready for us.
Yeah.
So, so it's like, and as you said earlier, it's like Democrats aren't going to do shit about this. Like,
yeah.
And especially, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about this in my next segment, but given that Mr. Hakeem Jeffries met with
who?
What's his face? Jared Kushner this weekend. Like a couple of days ago. God knows talking about what. But I'm sure in a way this might relate to that conversation.
Sure.
That it could. Like the idea for both parties is that they want to ensure their safety from us by getting to us first, if in the event the revolution or the zombie apocalypse ever were to arise. So this is, as you said, this is on par for the course within the party, our government in of itself.
Yep.
They're scared. And they want to do, and the thing is, like, we're not as people, we're not acting as if, this is so hard to say. I think, one, we're just so distracted with life that we're not in the means to kind of think about clapping cheeks, so to speak. We're not in a space right now where people are going to be up and protesting, or worse, knowing what's going on. Number one. Number two, and I think especially given the media, it's become like a soap opera. Like, people are more interested in the drama of it all versus like the actual action in terms of how do we fight back against the establishment on both sides to ensure that we get number one. Number three, and I think especially more importantly, if in the event we do, we're up against a militarized police. We're up against all this surveillance that can check us any moment on our phones, on our computers, anywhere around the world. They're watching us. So they can track our every move. They can track our every thought and voice. If we're looking to so we're not thinking in terms of how can we get a step ahead. We're just kind of complacent as a society right now. And we're just kind of living almost in a pseudo surrender state, or paralyzed state, I think it would be a better phrase to say. Like, we're not in a position, we should be more in a position to do something, and we're not doing it. And even if we were capable of doing it, is how we are going to fight against all of this, given, the overlords, really, like Peter-Thiel and others, who are investing their money to ensure that, as I said, when the apocalypse ever comes, that
they're going to be good.
Can destroy us.
Well, and if revolution ever decides to pop up too, that's part of that as well, right?
Right.
So stop it before it ever takes off. So and keep in mind where they learn all this wall surveillance state shit. It's a little country over in the Middle East, you know, like. So we talked about that. And all that AI surveillance grid stuff, they tested over in Israel too. You know, same companies made the same shit. So anyway, sorry to cut you off.
No, but I was saying like, I don't think it was that important anyway. But it's we're not thinking like they're thinking, and I think for me that's the issue. Like, we're not in a space or in a mindset of thinking how can we get at minimum one step ahead against the overlords. And I feel like collectively, if we're able to pull our resources together, we can. But all of this stuff that we kind of see in the media is, I wouldn't say even a convenient distraction. That's on purpose to have us distracted and kind of get caught up in, like, as I said, the drama of it all, like the soap opera of the show, that we're not thinking in terms of how can we strike back against the empire, so to speak, you know? And the fact that I get sick and tired of, you know, being in these spaces, especially in these political spaces, like politics in its truest sense is boring. It is. It's just really a lot of political nerds kind of talking about policy all day. Really. Like, but instead they kind of morphed it into like the Truman Show.
Yeah.
Where we can watch and kind of be like, oh, Trump said this, and like,
reality show
Hakeem Jeffries didn't say this, and AOC didn't do this, and like trying to harvest her eggs and like all this kind of stuff. Nothing about policy, nothing in terms of like how normal Americans are going to get helped, but it's just more or less like red team versus blue team, seemingly battling each other, you know, the fight to the death and all that kind of bullshit.
Kabuki theater.
And meanwhile, right, Peter-Thiel and others are just getting rich.
Yep. And creating an entire surveillance state around you, like literally making Big Brother. Shit that fucking Orwell was trying to scream at people that, you know, would be a terrible and awful dystopia. We're now in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, when companies can send corpo goons to come, you know, deal with you when you leak their content or whatever, like, you know, like this is the kind of stuff that's happening. It's like cyberpunk Weyland-Yutani bullshit. You know, it's wild shit. But yeah, I thought this was important to cover. Derek did a decent job on that one. But talking about it is why YouTube suppresses our channel. And if you want to give to us in a way that YouTube doesn't take 30%, you're welcome to scan the QR code on your screen or go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network and give a few dollary dues to the network and, you know, help us grow and keep the lights on. Another way you can help do that is like you subscribing, sharing this video, leaving a comment, letting me know what you think, and otherwise, thanks for watching. To the chats, Boy Wonder. Let's look. I wanted to answer a few things. But Nihilo Nostrum in the chat said, I like Bros's resistant cells idea of people making community mutual aid supports, but it's devoid of socialist class conscious raising. Anarcho-communism ain't such without elements of both, or anarcho-capitalism, or anarcho-anything.
Right. Listen, I've said this before. Mutual aid is a great first step.
Yeah.
But that's not dealing with policy. You're essentially asking people to, and I think it's a good thing, you're asking people to give their time and money and resources to help others. We should be doing that anyway, you know, within our communities. That doesn't lead to the larger question of how can policy change so that it's not a necessary thing. Like, this should not be like the end result. Like, this should be in part of a larger discussion in terms of how policy can change so that you don't necessarily have to do that, if that makes any sense. Like, we should be supporting our communities anyway, but that alone is not going to solve the problem. So, while necessary, it's incomplete. And until the policies change, and especially right now, like just even asking you guys, you know, to give to I can't necessarily in good faith ask you guys, and I wouldn't want you to give if you can't even get food on your table to eat yourselves. Like, to me, that doesn't sit well with me. Like, those of you who are able to give and you have the means to, thank you. We really appreciate that. But as I keep saying every week, I'd rather you give that money to people in your community who will need it more. Like, not to say we're good, but again, we're not doing this for the money. We're not trying to be like podcasters that you like, especially one of the bigger ones. Like, we're just doing this essentially volunteering to do it. And like, you know, we're doing this more or less for fun, in a sense, you know, but we're not struggling here. Could we do better? Sure. But we're not relying on our numbers in order to do this show. So, you know, but again, like, I just feel bad of asking people for mutual aid. And if you have the means to, definitely do it. But we can't depend on people to do that all the time. So it's like, what more can be done to ensure that the government is supposed to do their part to ensure that people are having their basic needs? The idea that you're giving mutual aid, that implies basic needs are not being met. That, to me, is a problem. And if we can't do that, then what the fuck are we doing? Like, I always say this. You should judge your community based on how we treat our kids. And right now it's back to school season. The fact that, and again, this is wonderful. There's like a back to school things and all that kind of stuff. But my question is this: why is it that families cannot afford to give their students basic supplies? I'm not even talking about all the clothes and all that kind of shit. Like notebooks, pencils, bags, which in and themselves are not that expensive, especially now. But people have to give those things because certain families are not able to buy those things on their own. That, to me, is a problem. So if we can't do that, in turn of having government set up things so that that shouldn't be a thing, then, you know, so again, all that to say, mutual aid, great. But it's a temporary solution, in my opinion.
In this case, he mainly means like commune, like actual commune. No, I just know Derek enough to know what was meant by that. Which, like, I always find it funny.
Sure.
The anarcho-capitalists and libertarians are super into a community helping each other at a base level. There's a word for that, guys. I don't know if you know this. There's a particular ism, you know, starts with a C, that sounds very familiar to community. Like, I think it's a great idea. Yes, community-based, like, systems, I agree with, you know. But also Derek's just a little too spiritualist, woo-woo, high vibrational, like, you know, for my taste. But, you know, I think he's a genuine person trying to do the right things. You know.
Sure.
But as all the IMA people, I think, are genuine people trying to do the right things. So far, at least, you know. until they get powerful enough to need to be co-opted. One of the two. You know, which is always a possibility with all of us. But let me look a couple more chats. But Neil Nosom Ryan was part of the inspiration for me to start producing content. You notice my style, it's similar to his with a million tabs each night, but he's an anarchist and not particularly theoretical. Yeah, that's, yep, T-Lav, all those guys, I think they actually do care about what's going on and getting the truth out there, you know? So go check them out. You know, AM Wake Up brings them on, I think it's Tuesdays, T-Lav Tuesdays. You know, we dual stream that to our Twitter if you want to go check that out. But, well, oh, and the other thing I wanted to touch on was Golden Monarch brought up the IMA's AI transparency pledge, you know, which was essentially that they're going to just disclose if AI is used, you know, by any of their members, which, I mean, I'd love like a complete non-proliferation treaty on that, but, you know, like, whatever, you know, but, anyway, you ready for our next one?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Here you go.
So, I'm gonna have Reef kind of glaze over.
There's always the macro, and then there's the micro.
So I apologize, but as I said, you said you had articles for me, but I didn't ask you. So
yeah, I mean, I could.
But I was tired. This was a bit sure, but do you think it's important to kind of talk about in terms of, and especially for me, kind of having this be personal, because how long ago? It was 6.5 years ago. You know, like I was on the streets. Like I was beginning to get more, I was starting the road to radicalization, and then COVID happened.
Yep.
And then George Floyd happened.
Yep.
And there was a lot of outrage in terms of Black lives. I think that had been kind of happening since the Obama administration, and it just kind of overwhelmed that movement, you know. And 6 years later, not much has changed, and we have this bitch to kind of thank for it in terms of how she has minimized what has been going on. Not just her, but for people like her who kind of take our issues and kind of dilute them to nothing to make it irrelevant. When it relates even to your last segment as far as surveillance, you know, so, and all this militarization of the police state, you know, but, and then making our terms that are near and dear to us, again, irrelevant. But that's kind of how politics works in this day and age. So Margaret Kimberly from Black Agenda Report wrote an article about her woke comment. Now I know it's late, but I do want to give a little bit more context, especially with the clip that went viral on her, like I think over a week ago, where Margaret writes, "Woke one and Democratic Party deceit." So Margaret writes, "The Democrats backtracking on what they dismissively refer to as wokeness is the newest iteration of their political trickery, as once again they give the appearance of supporting what they actually oppose. They serve the interests of the oligarchs and not those of the people. It's good that there are now plenty of young people who like the idea of socialism, but if they don't really know what socialism is, they also don't know what capitalists will do to resist it." That was Glenn Ford. In analyzing the recent controversy over what Democratic Congresswoman AOC referred to as woke one, which even in that I did not get, but whatever, It is necessary to follow her political career as an example of how Democrats have joined in dismissing political demands made by Black people and political progressives as wokeness to be discarded. Known as AOC, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is consistent in proving herself to be both unprincipled and shallow. She became a political star in 2018 when she defeated a long-serving incumbent in the New York City congressional primary. The excitement of a progressive victory didn't last long when it was clear she didn't really stand for anything except the fake image of being a leftist. When AOC went to Congress in 2019, she sided with the Democratic Party establishment in supporting Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House. So long as Leader Pelosi remains the most progressive candidate for Speaker, she can count on my support. It is odd to see the word progressive connected in any way to the then Speaker, but that is what can one expect from even leftist Democrats. Ocasio-Cortez stayed on the same course in 2021 when progressive activists demanding that House members, me, of being among them, withheld votes supporting Pelosi as Speaker unless she committed to holding a vote on Medicare for All. The movement called for Democrats to force the vote, and AOC was among those who were asked to show support for what millions of voting Democrats wanted to see enacted, a universal healthcare system in this country. And to be fair, all the memories.
What?
The memories.
Whisper of a dream. We can whisper of a dream. It's okay.
Yeah. AOC did nothing for it. She voted for Pelosi, arguing that Democrats didn't have enough votes for Medicare for All, which was a bold-faced lie. Of course, forcing through what the Pelosi's of the world don't want to do is how policies are enacted. Nancy Pelosi purposely acted against what millions of people wanted when she sabotaged Medicare for All, with corporate media giving her cover when she needed it most. The Ocasio-Cortez trajectory has remained the same, giving cover to the establishment with her fake credentials. Most recently and infamously, during the 2024 Democratic National Convention, she said of Kamala Harris, she is working tirelessly to secure a ceasefire in Gaza and bringing the hostages home. The claim was laughable at the time she's made it, and now we know that as a condition of receiving Biden's support, he demanded no daylight between the two of them. Intelligent observers knew right away that there was no tireless effort on Harris's part, and AOC played the same role she always had. Now the Democratic Party is, as they say, shook over recent electoral victories by Democratic socialists. The decades-long rightward shift in politics seemed to go unchanged with one very far-right party, the Republicans, and the Democrats, who are only slightly more to the left, and despite a now long past history of providing some protection for the social safety net, can be described as center-right at best, with the occasional opportunists like AOC for show. Democratic socialists support policies that most people in this country want, including the universal single-payer healthcare system that's known as Medicare for All. Of course, the Democratic Party's leadership remains consistent in saying they oppose what their voters want. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is just the latest to loudly proclaim that he won't do what voters want him to do should the Democrats win back control of the House in the midterm elections, if that happens at all at this point. So actually, let me see. Yeah, so I will play, as a reminder, what he said on Meet the Press in regards to Medicare for All. Now, keep in mind, once upon a time, Hakeem Jeffries was co-sponsored on it, I believe back in 2018, 2019. And now he is since, because of money interest, now it says that he's not. But play the clip as a reminder for folks.
Not co-sponsored it since you became Democratic leader. Will you put Medicare for All up for a vote if you become Speaker?
Well, listen, these are all conversations that the House Democratic Caucus is going to have. Right now, we're focused on November 3rd, not January 3rd. What we are promising the American people is that we're going to fight to make health care affordable for every single American. And we know there's a...
Okay. I mean, we get it. No, was your answer. No. Great. Could have just said that.
Yeah. But I think you could stop it here. I've heard enough. But like,
yeah, like
but I have a comment.
obfuscation in the first 30 seconds.
Who is, I forgot her name, but I wish she kind of pushed back on this a little bit. Like, okay, let's say for the record, okay, you are against Medicare for all. Okay, fine. What's your plan then?
I mean,
what do you propose?
You expect these
No, I don't.
journalists
But
to be.
I wish the media would ask.
Yeah.
Right. But that's why I wish the media, if they did their job, would ask, okay, you oppose Medicare for all. So what do you propose to make healthcare affordable? Which in that question is still bullshit because affordable is very subjective.
Yeah.
But let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's ask him, okay, so what's your plan? What do you propose that might be better than Medicare for all? Like, and she just let him kind of say a whole lot of nothing, which essentially meant no, to kind of give him cover. So that's what I mean. It's like, you're not asking the right questions, especially given that over 80% of the Democratic base want Medicare for all, which even on this show, we talked about, it doesn't even go far enough because that's really the centrist view.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so going back into the article, members of the establishment have not changed their stripes, and they are committed to defeating the new Democratic Socialists and have help from corporate media in the beatdown. The woke one remark was elicited by an interview from the ABC News program this week. Ocasio-Cortez didn't just distance herself from DSA candidates in the interview. She also had to admit that she had endorsed anyone who the party leaders didn't want. So actually, I know there was a clip that went viral where she said the woke one comment, but I want to kind of extend that a little bit more to give more context of what was actually said in terms of, this part where they talked about Democratic Socialists who are winning in a lot of these races in the primary season right now. So I think it might be about 5 minutes that I want to play from this, I think. So let's just listen to the whole part in context.
The headline in The Hill.
And then we'll talk.
You go ahead. Today's cautious AOC would not have endorsed the AOC of 2018 because you were obviously running against an incumbent. I mean, that's probably correct, right? What's your thinking there?
I wasn't endorsed by anybody when I was running.
Your friends.
Yeah.
Not true.
Just some friends. So I wasn't endorsed by I don't think I was endorsed by a single elected official when I was running for office. And, I think when I see so many of these incredible insurgent candidates that are running today, that's part of what makes me so proud of them, is that they do not answer.
Didn't she get Bernie's endorsement when she ran? Didn't she get Didn't she get Bernie's endorsement when she ran?
I don't remember. She might have, but I don't remember.
I would feel like so.
To any master. They are not beholden to any corporate interest or any party boss. And they are completely independent, which allows them to be responsive to their communities and the people that elected them. And I think that in many ways that makes our movement stronger when you have to rely on your own organizing skills. And I think that it has proven to be quite successful. And I see so many of these candidates and they remind me of that moment.
I mean, but like in New York, you had the candidates that were endorsed by Mayor Mamdani, two of whom were challenging sitting members of Congress, powerful members of Congress, Democrats, and you decided to sit that one out. Is that part of wanting to work with your colleagues that are in the House? I mean, what's the...
Yeah, I think we're all in different, politics is also a workplace, and we're all in different positions to that.
Yes.
No.
That's a yes.
No.
Well, no.
She
sat this out because she wanted it to play out. No, she sat it out because she is trying to play ball in
Mhm.
terms of higher ambitions. That's what I meant when I said yes.
Yeah.
So yeah. So she's like, again, the idea that she endorsed Hakeem Jeffries, which to me is maddening, but is
Mhm.
understandable because she is allegedly looking to get into higher office, which seems more probable now than ever now. And she figures, oh, if I play my cards right, if I do the right thing, if I keep my mouth shut, then maybe, just maybe, Hakeem Jeffries or whoever, would kind of support me. But I think she thinks her shit don't stink because Hakeem Jeffries, so assuming that he becomes speaker, which at this point I highly doubt that will be a thing, will rat fuck her to no end. Like, say that he won't. But anyway, continue.
Endorsed, for example, in New York, on the state level, I endorsed a slate of challengers to incumbents in the assembly and in the Senate, and I don't work in state government, which gives me a greater freedom to be able to do that and to assess it. And I'm very grateful, that we now have a progressive movement that is in large enough numbers that, it used to be that you could fit 5 people in a closet, and that was the caucus. And now we've grown into quite a successful movement.
So you have Wisconsin coming up next. Francesca Hong, who is the Democratic Socialists of America supported candidate for governor. You haven't endorsed her. Are you going to?
No, I haven't endorsed in that race. My focus has been in winning back the Congress, winning back the House, and positioning ourselves to have the best chance possible to win the Senate. So I've been focused on those legislative races.
What do you make of those controversial statements? I'm sure you've seen. I mean, she's, the Thanksgiving dust up. She says she doesn't, still believe that, but, the abolished prisons, abolished police, which is also positions that have been taken by a lot of the progressive candidates who have won. How do you get around that? I mean, those are not positions that are supported by
Right. I mean, I think that a lot of these races, even right now, they'll have a tendency to be nationalized.
Yeah.
But these races ultimately are local, and all politics are local. My understanding is that
right there.
Is that Francesca?
Did you catch that?
Yeah, all these empty fucking platitudes. Yes.
Hold on. She said just now, all these races are local. Yeah, a minute ago, she was like, I'm sending these state and assembly races out because I'm not involved in those races. I'm on the federal level, or something to that effect. So if you're aware that these races are local AOC, and granted, this is within your state, why not endorse those candidates who you believe are somewhat aligned with where you are? So which is it? So
Neither.
You see the...
She believes in nothing.
So you see how she kind of both sides that? She was like, oh, I'm saying races, like, because I have nothing to do with it. But she's also saying now all these races are local. So you would think that because with her influence, she can have a lot of pull in order to elevate a lot of these state races from these candidates. But she's staying out of it again on purpose. Because she knows that if she... Yeah.
Like
it's
Barnum statement.
Yeah.
It's like marketing.
It's all about her status. And it's all about what she feels is going to be the most beneficial to her right now. So basically she said a whole lot of nothing, but she also kind of, she's lying on herself. And she basically said one thing, but meant another thing. So
yeah,
just wanted to make sure we all caught that.
Sure.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like I'm so used to like during this era seeing through this shit where it's like standard political doublespeak, like this was when I was getting to Bernie, noticing all these things and like, you know, and then noticing it in him and noticing it in like this
right. But I
standard.
think we just yeah, but I think
I can tell you what it is.
We can bullshit, but like if you catch some of the bullshit, you can like the fact that people will just listen to her and just kind of glaze over. I think in of itself.
Do you know why? We're so used to politicians being overtly corrupt fucking cunts that like classic politicians who are covertly cunts like get away with it. Like,
right.
You know, as long as they do the old school smile and wave, kiss a baby routine and, you know, act like they're good people, people buy it.
Right.
None of our community, they've all long since gotten over this kind of crap. But, you know, I feel you.
But you know what I said to AOC.
Yep.
On the steps of the Capitol, because she wasn't expecting, or when I went to that, you know, Justice Democrats fundraising event, and I called out Ayanna Pressley and others in terms of their stance on student loans. Like, they're not expecting anybody to kind of challenge them in that way, you know? And again, that's why she's on this show, because she knows she's going to say whatever she wants that doesn't make a lot of sense, and she's not going to get clapped back on it. And you can argue that's why she doesn't make a lot of these appearances, like doing town halls or all this kind of stuff now, because more than likely now there's going to be like few of us who are actually listening and paying attention, who know of her bullshit, who will call her on her bullshit, and she doesn't particularly like that, and she gets all flustered or angry and some shit, and kind of patronizes us for, you know, for actually listening to her and actually kind of calling out on the things that she said in the past and how the inaction she's doing now. So, you know, but that's just it. It's like the media gives her a pass because they're like, oh, she's so nice and like she means these things. But again, like we have to really listen to what they're saying. You know, yes, a lot of the stuff is bullshit, but at the same time, a lot of the stuff they're telling on themselves.
Yeah.
And in telling on themselves, we should question, why are we even supporting these people? You know?
Or
so
engaging with it at all, which is my thing. Like at one point, is there enough nails in the coffin for you to go, all right, I'm good on all that. Like, especially when none of these people actually wield real power. They're stenographers. You know?
Right.
So, but like, this is all marketing and PR. This is, you know, like it's the same way when you look at the Denny's commercial and you see the nice waitress be nice to the people. Yeah, go to an actual Denny's and go deal with the waitress who's got 3 kids and this is just one of her jobs. She ain't fucking with you like that. You're like, here's your fucking eggs. Like, you know, they're not like, Reef,
is this a personal Reef?
No, not at all. I was just making an example. It could have been fucking, I'm Gladys from the Wawa. You know, like it's just this type of like real Americans ain't got no time for this bullshit, but like advertising works on a lot of people. And once you kind of see through the like, you see the man behind the curtain, it all just kind of falls apart, you know? So, especially when you like understand debate tactics and stuff like that, you know, obfuscation and like gish galloping and like, you know, all these standard tropes, you know, it just gets like repetitive and dull to like call this out to me. And there's so many other people that are like focusing and doing that. And I'm like, whatever, you know, I'll put that energy elsewhere. It's like you were saying, like when you were calling them out, like at one point we thought this is where power was held. Now I'm like, we got to go a couple levels deep, dude. Like go protest the Palantir, you know, go protest the actual oligarchs controlling these people, get in their faces, yell at them, You know,
Right.
like,
which is funny because that's what, and on like independent media, like I don't want to say colleagues, but the people who like who are bigger than us are not saying that either. At most, they'll be like, "Oh, go protest the Supreme Court," or "Go protest this politician."
Yeah.
And none of those assholes are going to protest at all. I'm like, okay, person.
Yes.
You're saying it. You lead the charge. You're not. You're telling us to do it. The difference here, at least with me, I've been on the front lines. You know, and in a lot of ways, I kind of do this work not every single day, but often enough on the local level. You know, these people are just sitting on their perched studios or homes, rich as hell, telling us, go protest, and like, they're not moving from their damn seats.
Yeah.
You know, now some of them have admitted, oh, that's not my thing. Okay, fine, do you? But I think at this point, if you believe in this stuff, you should set the example. But no, you're too comfortable too. Like, you benefit from all the drama as well.
Yeah.
You know, this is how you get your money. So it's not worth it to you to go out there because that's going to affect your bottom line. But anyway, let's finish.
Jessica Hong has made clear her present stances to her electorate.
Yeah, she's moved away from a lot of that.
She's moved away from it. And I have a local city councilman that has this saying, woke one was crazy.
Woke one was crazy. Okay, that's actually...
And I think that what's important is that we have to assess what
was it? I mean, did the movement go too far with some of those positions? I mean, you briefly supported the idea of defunding the police.
Well, you know, I think that during this time and especially during COVID, there was a huge opening of the Overton window. We were shut down. There was some of the highest unemployment rates that we have seen because of those shutdowns. Yeah. And I think that the doors were really open in trying to entertain any and every policy that was going to get us to a better place. And I actually think that the discussions that were had in that time were quite fruitful. I think that when we talk about crime today, it's fundamentally different than the way that we talked about crime in bringing crime down, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that we all share in the goals of having as low a crime rate.
Fuck that shit. You know?
No, and this is the bullshit that I can't stand about her and the Democrats. Her, because she's running cover for them, but she's not even saying the whole thing. She's just kind of glazing over. It's like, oh, we've had plenty of conversations since then, and now things are seemingly a lot better now. There's less police. Meanwhile, more of us are getting shot by the police or terrorized by the police. That's the whole point of what was going on 6 years ago. She doesn't mention that. That's the issue that I have. It was just, it almost kind of seems nebulous and kind of like, oh, this pseudo thing happened, but we talked about it. There were fruitful conversations about it, and now things are seemingly better. As far as I know, police are still militarized. Like, I saw on Twitter, like within the past couple of weeks, how, you know, a lot of police sergeants in higher up positions are getting like so much fucking overtime. Like, they're making more than some mayors in some cities. You know, like, meanwhile, as a teacher, I don't get fucking overtime.
No, you're just expected to fucking work after hours.
Right. But you work a fucking shift and like, or maybe a couple, and like, you're able to get like thousands and thousands of dollars beyond your pay grade. Like, fuck you.
Yep.
So she's not telling the whole story here. And you know why? I think a lot of it because Black Lives Matter didn't start with Trump. This started under Obama. And it had just been escalating and escalating and escalating up until like 2020 when it kind of boiled over with George Floyd. So, but she could have said, oh, you know, I'm for defund the police, or at least something to that vein, for this reason. And kind of explain, you know, like, Black people have been terrorized by the cops forever. They've had enough. They want change. And we need to think of ways of how we're able to keep them safe, or whatever. Like, something towards those lines. You know, like, that would have been, I would imagine, like, in my mind, at least somewhat more accurate. But it was, she just kind of dismissed, if not even dismissed. She didn't even mention any of that, and just like, again, she minimized the whole thing.
Yeah, this is all
So
to, like,
in my mind, it's
protect her image. You know,
to protect her. Well,
and also
you
to
know,
start to modify her image. Like, she's fucking gonna run. Like, I mean, I've said this forever. They're gonna push her to higher office.
She said, I think she said in this interview, essentially the door is open for her to run for higher office. She's running for something.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's definitely modifying her language because she wants the liberal votes. But
And it also
you know,
goes to show she's willing to throw her own constituents under the bus when she's in office. Which is exactly what she just said.
Right.
You know, oh, woke one. Oh, the thing that got me elected isn't how I'm going to govern. You know?
Right.
So it's
for
standard
me,
shit.
Right. But for me, and this is kind of the bullshit that I go through in particular, because people are like, why in the hell are you not voting? Why in the hell should I get off my couch to vote for this chit or anyone like that if they're not even going to protect my ass? You talk about protecting Jewish people all day long, and not to say they need safety too, but what about my safety? You know, or not even just mine, the safety of, you know, LGBTQ plus people, or like any other minority group in this country. What are you doing to ensure the safety collectively? You know, because again, with this militarized police, that affects all of us, especially right now under Trump, because he has his own goon squad that could essentially take us out whenever he wants to. So, you know, it's just kind of this bullshit. Like, another example how they take Black Lives Matter had its issues for sure, but the crux around it is another example of how these politicians, both on the left and the right, take it, minimize it to nothing, and pay it dust. But they still expect you, oh, you need to vote for us because the Republicans are going to be way worse than this.
The two parties have combined against us to nullify our power by a gentleman's agreement of non-recognition no matter how we vote. May God write us down as asses if we ever again are found putting our trust in either the Republicans or the Democratic Party. W.E.B. Du Bois.
You know what?
1922.
I put that in the slide. If you go on to slide 54, I put that up.
Sure.
You know, I was going to get that to the end, but you went ahead of me.
Well, you know, we have
you
covered.
Can read it again for.
Yes. The two parties have combined against us to nullify our power by a gentleman's agreement of non-recognition, no matter how we vote. May God write us down as asses if we ever again are found putting our trust in either Republican or the Democratic Party. And this is in 1922, mind. Like, I would just, in this day and age with inflation, just chalk it up to if we are ever engaged in electoralism. Or, you know, like, voting ain't going to save us. Unfortunately. I wish it would be so easy.
I'm going to read back Cookies in the comments because he said, wouldn't this apply to third parties too? Yes.
Yeah, kind of.
It applies to them too. Not kind of. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Thing that I hate about the Green Party, even though I'm a registered Green here, like, they always jump to the federal level. Always. Like, they want to they want to be a part of the drama too. And my thing is, look, if you're trying to build a party, you have to sound from the ground up. Start locally. Start getting some people on the local level to actually do some shit that have some reputable like wins like underneath that belt and work from there. I'm not sure if that's going to necessarily work either given this environment, but
right, electoralism is so stupid. If that's the way you're supposed to do it, we ain't got time for that shit. Like, that's why they want to push federal so that they could get in there and hopefully imply change on a drastic scale. I don't think that's their plan. I think they're part of the same system, you know, but like that's my point. Like, if that's the way change can happen in this system's fucked. Fuck it. Like, you know, it shouldn't work that way, especially when we have such drastic issues right now that need to be dealt with. So
I'm just like, look, I'm willing to try anything else other than what we've been doing. And try like what the Greens are doing, you know.
Yeah, some of us have been on that for multiple elections.
Whoever else comes up, like, you know, and I've been screaming for the rafters like forever. It's like, because there are Green candidates here, like in DC, at least that have been in our primary elections, and people are like, "Who are you?" Like, you know, start from the bottom. You know, yeah, it's going to take some years, but I'd rather do that and not try and repeat the same fucking experiment over and over again than maybe doing the other way. You know, look, we're fucked anyway, so it's just like try something new and see. I don't know, like, but anyway, I had enough of that of her talking. So let's finish the article and finish this. Over it. If Ocasio-Cortez won't endorse outsiders who are running for office as she did, it is not surprising that she abandons what she claimed to want just a few years ago. The term woke has an interesting history. First used by movement activists to urging us to stay woke, that is to be vigilant, but was turned to a slur by the right wing, and now has come back to Democrats who have joined with the right in denouncing their own people. Let us remember that in 2020, millions of people took to the streets in protest, after witnessing the police murder of George Floyd. They demanded significant changes in police, including questioning the huge amounts of money that do not keep us safer, but instead give police a license to kill. The NYPD budget is currently $11 billion, an amount that can obviously be reduced, but which has instead grown over time. In the past 6 years, police have killed at least 3 people every day, more than 1,100 a year. AOC and others such as the Prince himself, Zohran Mamdani, run from woke pledges to defund police, were right the first time, assuming that they were ever serious in the first place. U.S. police budgets are higher than military spending for most of the world, the third highest, in fact. Neither the NYPD budget or any other was reduced even a little. The phony progressives are running from something that never even happened. In 2020, mass protests forced the Democrats to give the appearance of making common cause with an angry public. Nancy Pelosi, the Congressional Black Crows, and other leaders donned kente cloth and knelt for 9 minutes in one of the strangest photo ops of all time. There were a lot of people kneeling and taking a knee, as former football player Colin Kaepernick had done in protest of police killings. Kaepernick was loudly criticized, but at the opportune moment, his gesture was taken on by politicians, CEOs, and others who were in on a gesture that had become nothing more than an opportunistic grift meant to nullify the public. Now that more serious Democratic socialists are running for, well, I'll argue if there's as serious.
None of those exist.
They have unpetted the black members of the political class as well. Al Sharpton was somehow anointed as host of annual commemorations of the March of Washington, and this year he'll be joined by AOC and Sanders. The Woke One episode had not come without political costs, and AOC and her mentor Sanders note that they must make an appearance and partially denounce the recent denunciations. It is fitting that their fecklessness will be carried out with the assistance of Sharpton, who gives cover to the Democratic wing of the duopoly if they show up at appointed times, and publicly kiss his ring. They're all of a kind, living off of undeserved reputations and crawling out periodically to fool the people at the appointed moments. In 2019, Glenn Ford warned us, socialism has become the catch-all for anti-capitalism. Maybe it always was in the minds of most people. Now that Democratic socialists are getting a hearing from the people, we will find out who is really a socialist. We're also finding out how vicious the lords of capital are as they fight tooth and nail against the mildest and most popular reformists and use of AOCs of the world to do it. We see not just the Democrats' deceit, but also that of a political class that exists in the service of capitalism. They are the errand boys and girls to the oligarchs who occasionally need new phases or phrases to continue their deceptions. If the politics of 2020 were lies, they still are in 2026. Let LC and Bernie hang out with AI. It is our task to build something different and not fall prey to narratives meant to fool and weaken us. And honestly, I think that's the point. Like, we try all these things and, like, we're still hearing vote, vote, vote. We have to, like, in one breath, we can't vote our way out of this. But on the other hand, we need to defeat fascism, so we must vote for the very people who are screwing us over too, and all this kind of bullshit. Meanwhile, we're not talking about, like, not being like Looney Tunes in terms of doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again until people are just fed up and actually are willing to try something new. But kind of like, it's just another example of the bullshit that's going. And I wish more people will kind of caught on to this by now. It's the idea of like, people like AOC exist to give the illusion of the possibility of change. Nothing more. They are paid actors in the same way like Trump and all the rest of them are paid actors too. They have a role to play to nullify the public into believing that they're actually going to not even do something, the possibility of doing something, which to me is far worse. Like, we're not, at this point, should be working on possibility.
Right.
It's either you do it or you're fucking gone. And right now, like one of our first segments that we ever did on this show was nihilism, which I kind of talked about. Like, if you want to call me a fucking nihilist, then fine, fucking call me a nihilist at this point, because
you're much better than me.
Just end this shit. Yeah, end this shit. Like, just end it. Like, I'd rather see, and you can call me out on it. I don't care. The empire needs to fall. It's basically going to at this point. Like,
one can only hope. I
can only wish. It's not. It's gonna carry on like by a thread, but they're somehow gonna keep the grift going as long as possible until they possibly can anymore. But it's but the idea that, again, AOC especially is allowed to get away with this bullshit. Meanwhile, people like me and others are kind of like, okay, what the fuck is, like, why did we even bother? Like, so, we kind of reported like, how Black people were going to sit out from protesting or whatever against Trump because we're tired and all that kind of stuff. Like, and I made comments about that before. Like, I don't necessarily think that should be happening. Then again, in the same breath, I can also, if you've been really doing the work and you're hearing this bullshit, you can understand why people are singing out.
Yeah.
What do we have to go off of if these people are going to endorse and support the very people who hate them and are not going to do the necessary things in order to bring radical change to this country? Like, what is it going to take?
For me, and this is part of, I think the thing that it might require taking is like, and I know I can be an insufferable asshole about it. Like, I feel like a party pooper raining on everyone's parade, Like, they want to be able to have the catharsis with others and They clearly see these politicians lying. They aren't genuine. Like all the things that we've just mentioned for the last 45 minutes. To me, it's like if you had this relationship.
I'm sorry, Reef. Do you really believe that, or do you believe that people are just in denial?
What about what?
Because again, just the idea of they see what's happening, they know what's happening.
Well,
if they give any comment,
I think
they might be at very tepid, but they're still kind of like, fuck it, we have to vote for these people anyway. And the idea is we'll fight assuming what we're hearing right now, again, kind of the same thing what we heard back in 2024. We'll push Biden left, or right now it's we'll fight whoever we need to fight within the Democrats. We just need to get Trump out. And again, my thing is this: if Democrats, I'm saying Democrats should be working in our best interests. Allegedly, why are we fighting?
Pause. Should. Right? It's like if you imagine you're in a relationship, right? The relation's been long since over, right? And you're like, well, what he should have done, what I wish he would do, right? You already know they wouldn't have done those things. They had no intention of doing those things. At one point, we have to move on. I think we overestimate the amount of people even politically engaged enough to know who these people are, partially, and they're,
true.
So, to me, I think we're hyper-focused on it, and partially, look, I've been involved in this space for a long time. I went through this figuring out AOC was a CIA plant who never owned a bar, worked at Langley, Virginia, I went through this whole process to end up where I am now, where I'm begging people, hey, there is far more important corruption to cover. There's things actually happening in the world that need to get attention showed to them. And this seems to be all people want to engage with, this car crash of the reality show that they give to you. And it's I just get so frustrated where I'm why is this, how many nails in the coffin do we need on these people? And I get it. You feel like people aren't listening. And it's yeah, they aren't listening. At one point, do we just accept?
They're not listening, but more importantly, they're not hearing.
Yes.
Because again, even in that clip, that's why I wanted to play that longer clip, because obviously the woke one comment got viral, but the parts where she kind of told on herself is what people are not discussing.
Right.
It's the idea of
you have to let people be stupid on their own. They're not gonna they aren't you said it yourself. They're not listening. They're not paying attention enough. Whatever. And that's one thing to individually address someone if they have that's just concern. Right.
But my issue is their actions are leading to death for people.
Yeah.
But see, people that we know.
But it's not they are signing on the dotted line. They really doesn't matter the person or their own actions. The actions are happening
which makes
way above them.
Right, but that makes it the more heinous because these are people who allegedly say they care about my life or yours, but they're still complicit, implicitly or whatever, they're still wanting to be a part of the machine. So you got to make a choice. It's either you get off your fucking perch and actually do something tangibly that would be better for people like us who are trying to do the right thing by people and even in independent media to ensure that people are truly understanding what's going on and turn away from the establishment at all costs, because the establishment in themselves is not the problem, like the politicians and all. As you said, the real problem is Palantir and all of them, who we should be protesting their fucking asses. And no one is talking about protesting them.
Yeah.
But instead, we're hearing at most, we need to We need to protest the Supreme Court. We need to protest Trump. We need to protest JD Vance. Da 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 da. Protest, 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 protest. We're protesting the wrong fucking thing here.
Well, and that's my thing.
They're not the ones in control.
Priorities. I also think like all those politicians or whatever, they're essentially celebrities at this point, which require your engagement to have any power, have any influence. They are influencers. If you don't engage with that system at all, their power becomes less and less, you know. And look, I've not thought my theories all the way through. It's a lot of a gut thing, and I know some of the people in the chat kind of understand where I'm coming from, and like, you know, part of it's priorities for me, like especially if you're in this space as a media person, to like, hey, what really is more important to cover, you know? Like, and it may not always be the fun catharsis, point and laugh at the stupid, you know?
Right.
Like, which is what a lot of this stuff is. Like, to me, it's like a lot of content is like practically the National Enquirer, but political. Like, and I'm like, over all that, I've just, you know, like, do you know how many politicians I have just muted and blocked? You know?
Yeah.
Like, a bunch of them.
Say that to me all the time.
Because I'm like, you're not going to get new information from them. You're not going to get anything that you really need to address from them. Like, you know, you already know most of it, but like, I don't know. It's just frustrating for me because I'm like, guys, you know, the world, like, look at it, you know, like, this is fucking chump change compared to military intervention in the rest of the world, and you know what we're going to talk about in our next segments, and the surveillance state being brought upon us, like, by both parties, by all politicians. Like, I assume the minute you run for office, you don't give a fuck, you know?
Well, again, the idea, like I said this a couple of weeks ago, the fact that Abdul El Said said in an interview, no less, I'm a capitalist. I'm like,
yep, cool.
No more. I'm out.
Yeah.
Because you're part of the problem, bitch. And
see,
I've always had an issue with, I'll say it for a while now. But like, because that motherfucker has kind of gone back and forth on Medicare for all over the past few years. Like, I've been watching him for a minute. Because he was kind of affiliated with our circles for a bit. So, the fact that he said, which is very common to what Kamala has said, to what Biden has said, I am a capitalist. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, people are scared to talk about capitalism, well, socialism, because they don't want to talk about the side effects of capitalism. We never talk about, like, the cons of it.
Yeah.
You know? We never talk about as far as the exploitation that happens through it. It's always the idea, oh, you get innovation and things are cheaper and, like, there's the opportunity for everyone to be wealthy and all that kind of stuff. Well, if that's the case, why in the fuck are there still homeless people on the damn street?
Right.
And then they're going to lie to you. It's like, oh, that homeless person did something in their lives that made them that way. Which could be true.
Not the system that most likely
it could be true. Or could it be that the system fucked them over for whatever reason that they're in the state now?
Yep.
Like, we have to look at it both ways. But and that's the issue with capitalism that I hate. It's like, if you don't perform, if you don't do well, it's your fault. Somehow. Like, or you're not working hard enough. Or you're not doing enough of the right thing in order for you to make your wealth.
Well, and
it doesn't matter anyway. Any little wealth that we do get, who gets it?
Yeah. It trickles up.
Not me, not you.
Yeah.
And certainly not our neighbors. It's the oligarchs that get it. Because they own everything. So, okay, you might be able to own a little bit. You might be able to own a house or whatever one day, or whatever else maybe. Compared to these oligarchs who can just buy the whole damn block.
Yeah. And part of
that's
it is
what we need to think about. You can maybe get like a closet of a house if you're lucky.
Oh my God.
Whereas this
It's awful.
motherfuckers are able to buy out entire cities. Think about that.
Yep.
And what do you have left? And we're fighting for the scraps, essentially.
Yep.
That's the issue with capitalism.
Hey, I also think part of it, just to my point earlier, is that it's much easier to focus on like personalities and like discredit the personality than it is to discredit ideas, policies, and like policies aside are even beside the point. Like ideas and stuff and events, you know, dealing with like the who, what, when, why, and where, as opposed to just the who and how evil and corrupt they are. Like, plus, you know, YouTube and all that kind of stuff, and Twitter is a lot of times keyword dependent, you know, and people look up names, they look up AOC debunked, they look up, you know, whatever, and, you know, you notice a lot of people in the space, like, exploit that to some degree, even if they feel like they're doing it for the right reasons, you know, and they're exposing the powerful. Really, you're just giving the powerful, like, attention, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, at some point, go ahead.
I want to bring up something that Bad Cookie said in this segment. I think we can close out. He said, I'm going to date myself a bit, but back in the 80s, you used to be able to make a very basic living on a part-time job. Now you need 2 jobs to live, and I would argue maybe more than that.
Yeah.
But it's not the system. You know, like, and I actually thought about this morning on my way to work. Like, back in the day, like in the 50s, 1 job.
Yep.
1 income. You were able to have a car, you were able to have a house. And you were able to have kids, at least 2 with a picket fence. And I'm not going to say it's ideal for everyone, but you were able to manage on 1 income. Now you need to make like 2 is not even enough at this point. You know, what the fuck? And I think we need to start asking that. Like, how can we deviate from that lifestyle back in the day to now, where the idea of you now, and I said this last time, is like, there is no reason why in this day and age, especially if you're college educated, that you should be have to feel like you need to work more than 1 job or live in a small ass house with 6 other roommates, or not being able to have children when you want to. Like, that's a problem. Something happened, and we need to start asking why. And I don't think people are necessarily having those questions or discussions, or if they are, is very flippant in terms of their responses. So something we need to really ask ourselves, how did we deviate from that? Again, wasn't perfect, but that was kind of the ideal setup back then, to now where things have gone far worse. You know?
Yep.
Something to think about. I don't have the answer. I know you don't either, but
yep.
I mean, I don't want to be like AOC and just have the discussion. I want to be able to have the discussion so that some type of action, and at this point, I'll take almost anything.
Anything
needs to take.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel you.
You've said it a lot. I'm tired of talking. More doing. Like,
agreed.
But talk about stuff like this is why we are shadow banned to hell. Apologize for the long ass segment, but you guys are still here. So thank you for watching if you're still here. But regardless, if you want to support us, scan the QR code if you have your phone. Go to the Ko-fi link that you see on your screen if you're on your computer. Or if you just forget the Ko-fi link and you're in YouTube chatting live, you can type in exclamation point donate, all one word, and the Ko-fi link will pop up, and you can give as little as much as you want. Obviously, given the day and age we're in, and we know a lot of people may not have the money, so that's okay. The free way you can support us is like, subscribe, and share our content. maybe share this segment to all to your friends or family who feel like the Democrats are the way to go. Maybe challenge them a little bit in terms of if they really, if this is really the way to go in light of their actions. Could be worth the discussion. Hopefully, it could be a fruitful discussion of maybe we need to do something different other than just voting the same bitches in that makes our lives worse. And help us get to 5K so hopefully more people are able to see our content. Thanks for watching.
Yep. Cool. Well, chat, I know you had a bunch of stuff to say. Let me look. Which classes have money for political parties? The big one. You know? Let's look at we mentioned Cookie's thing about third parties. We talked about that. Driving Me Macy said it's always Obama's fault. Thanks, Obama. You know, but
which, as I said, I think a lot of this implicitly is not throwing Obama under the bus in a way.
Yeah.
To try to protect the god that is Obama, because a lot of this, especially with Black Lives Matter, that started under his era.
Yeah.
Not Trump. It just escalated more under Trump, but Ferguson was the catalyst that kind of kicked a lot of this off.
Like, once you realize, like, these politicians' actual job is to just be, like, mouthpieces and, like, figureheads, and, you know, they're playing a role for their shareholders, you know, it gets a lot easier to, like, kind of parse through all their, like, you know, they're essentially like a, you know, advertising campaign. You know, even the ones in the presidential office.
But I think in a lot of ways it gets harder once you're knowing that. It's like, because we look to these people to help us.
Yeah.
So then when we realize they're not going to, it's like,
yeah.
Well, what else are we supposed to do?
It's an abusive relationship.
Yes, we should help ourselves. I think basically it's like every man for himself, which I totally get. But I think even with that, that's kind of like the fault of capitalism, is because we become so individualized.
Yeah.
That we're not thinking of our neighbors or other people around us. Maybe in a night, like we're coming up on the holidays, like those times of the year or in certain situations, we might give a fuck for like a second, but it's not going to be consistent where it's going to be sustainable for people, especially those who are suffering.
Yeah, no, it sucks. I mean, I think of it like an abusive relationship, and that's why I'm like, we gotta like move on, you know? And I don't know where to move on to necessarily, but it'd be nice, you know? It's like we got to get some closure on these people that are lying to us and manipulating us, you know? So, and that, I think that means going no contact usually with that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I could also be wrong, you know. I've been wrong before, Care Bear. I think it's happened a few times.
You know, he doesn't think it's honestly an important segment for those who still hold a lot of value in the electoral system. The more they hear it, the more they have to confront it. Which, again, I think there's a lot of denial because there's money involved in connection to electoralism.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like, do you want the money, or do you want to be truthful? And I think for a lot of people, it's hard to not resist the form.
Well, and I hope I can give people the information to see through it themselves, you know, like without necessarily focusing on those like personalities directly, you know, just because I don't want to give them any like, you know, attention. So, you know, which is, it's harder to do that. It's like way harder to do that. You know, that's, you know, It's tough, but I think it's, you know, a much more noble pursuit sometimes, you know, for lack of a better term. Anyway,
yeah,
I am ready for the next segment. So let's get to it. It's going to be a bit depressing.
Yeah.
So, which,
way to end
you know,
it. Thank you.
No one else, you know, if everyone else is going to cover bullshit, I'll cover the depressing real shit, I guess. So you probably heard a bit about this, right? About the situation going on with kites in Israel.
Yeah.
And Gaza and the West Bank and whatnot. So just as a intro, here's Marwa Osman. Israel is apparently given the so-called Board of Peace 3 days to stop the paper kites coming out of Gaza, or else it will unleash a massive air aggression on the Strip. And honestly, what more is there to say? You don't need a 20-post thread for this one. The headline is the entire dystopian joke. A nuclear-armed entity, armed to the teeth, and claiming regional military supremacy, terrorizing, bombing multiple states, genociding the population of one state while ethnically cleansing the population of another state, is threatening another devastating attack because children in Gaza are flying paper kites. Children living amid rubble, children with barely any electricity, food, water, or normal childhood left, and somehow the paper kite is the threat that requires an ultimatum. Let that sink in. Not a missile, not a fighter jet, not an army, a piece of paper, a string, and a child. If this does not capture the sheer absurdity of their reality Palestinians are being forced to live through, I don't know what does. So, I found this in Israel-Palestine News because I knew we had to cover it. It is by Ramzi Mahmoud and Tariq Chorif, reposted from Andalu Ajanzi. But they write, Israel threatens assassinations and evacuation in Gaza over children's kites. Quote, a balloon is like a kite, and a kite is like a drone, whether it carries explosives or not. Israel Defense Minister said the Israeli army reported 4 recovered kites carried no suspicious material and posed no danger. So note, in the summer of 2021, Israel bombed Gaza relentlessly, ultimately killing 253 Gazans, 66 of them children, while Palestinian rockets killed 12 Israelis, 2 of them children. Such a disproportionate ratio is typical. A small number of Gazans began, when the wind was right, attaching Molotov cocktails to bunches of balloons and kites and launching them toward Israel. Some property and land damage were reported, but no Israeli deaths. Care Bear, well, we'll get to in a second, but Israeli leaders may be recalling this brief terror balloon trend and worrying that their nuclear capabilities are no match for such cutting-edge weaponry. And I've linked the article in chat, so if you want to go to it and click these blue links to read more about the power imbalances in Palestine, you're welcome to do so. But, Collin, do you remember when we covered the Chinese weather balloon hoax story? Right? And I mentioned that air current-based weapons, for like the history of warfare, have almost always been deemed not just ineffective, but an irrefutable failure of a mission. Like, you know, and almost always used in desperation. So the example I use is Japan sent something like 9,000 balloons filled with hydrogen towards the United States during World War II. Like, yep. I think it was something like 1,000 of them even got close to making it. And like 6 people got injured trying to like put out a fire that one caused. And like that was it. In the entirety of the United States, the thousands of balloon weapons, right? 6 people were injured. Not, you know, like maimed or killed or whatever. So, like, so that whole propaganda about these like Molotov kites is fucking bullshit. Like, they are irrelevant to this discussion. So I just wanted to point that out. You know, God forbid, I understand some historical context. Fuck me, I guess. You know, like how many, like why is that so hard to find these days, Collin? People who understand some shit when they talk about it, you know? Just anyway. Kites flown by children in the Gaza Strip have triggered Israeli threats of assassination and evacuation of residential neighborhoods, despite the Israeli army acknowledging that kites recovered near Gaza carried no, like, suspicious material and posed no danger. So even they're reporting, they didn't do shit, you know. But Israeli media reported in recent days that several kites had reached communities near the Gaza Strip. Field information obtained by Anadolu indicates that the kites are commonly flown by children for recreation, particularly in displacement camps, as they seek moments of relief amid the harsh condition. Like, I like how we have to fucking explain why a child might want to fly a kite.
Right.
Like, what fucking reality do we live in? You know? The lightweight kites are controlled by strings from the ground. If a string breaks, however, which is a common thing when you play with kites, by the way, Collin, you do, like, kite wars. You've ever seen those? Right? Like, competitive kiting, where you try to, like, break your opponent's string. That's a thing. You can look it up. You know, they have, like, whole events for it. But if a string breaks, wind currents can carry them beyond Gaza, where some residential areas lie only a few kilometers from Israeli communities across the boundary. Despite no explosives being found on the recovered kites, Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Israel Katz threatened Sunday to escalate assassinations in Gaza and evacuate Palestinians from residential areas if such launches continued. If a joint statement following a security assessment attended by Israeli Army Chief Eyal Zamir and senior military officials, Netanyahu and Katz warned that the army would increase assassination operations. If those are their actual fucking words, like, that they're calling these assassinations, you know, like, you wouldn't call, like, no military on earth would call them, you know, unaliving others an assassination, you know, like, it's wild. Anyway, they also threatened to evacuate residents from areas, the real shit, from which Israel says kites, balloons, or drones are launched. So, all of Gaza, all of the West Bank, like, you know, earlier Sunday, Katz ordered the military to act immediately and forcefully against kites and balloons. And again, this quote that a balloon is like a kite and a kite is like a drone, whether it carries explosives or not. Collin? What the fucking, like, how many drones are over Gaza right now, you think?
Tons.
Like, literally, we've talked about how the incessant whine from them causes trauma in and of itself. Like,
right.
You know, just crazy. Like, the amount of, like, power mismatch here. The threats drew both ridicule and concern among Palestinians in Gaza, with some fearing they would be used to justify a broader Israeli military escalation. Hamas spokesman Hassam Qasem warned against Israeli claims concerning what he described as children's toys in displacement camps. These threats, based on fabricated pretext, are an attempt to justify the continuation of aggression and violation against our people, reaching the point of threatening children in the Gaza Strip directly. Like, practically, no. He urged the U.S. administration, mediators, guarantor states, and the Board of Peace to pressure Israel to halt attacks that he said were undermining the ceasefire, which the Palestinian side was fully observing and Israel has never observed. So, political analyst Iyad Al-Kara told Anadolu that the Israeli threats could serve both military and domestic political purposes. He said they could signal an intention to resume broader airstrikes under what he's described as flimsy pretext, while also serving domestic political objectives during Israel's election period. Al-Qara noted that Israeli military and security circles themselves have said the kites pose no threat. He argued that Israel is seeking to create a climate of escalation and divert domestic attention while avoiding its obligations under the Gaza ceasefire arrangements that they've never intended to meet. I would add, how can a nuclear state the size of Israel be alarmed by kites flown by children? Like, the Israeli army said Saturday that 4 kites have been found near the Nahal Oz community over roughly 24 hours, 1 on Friday and 3 the following morning. After examining them, the army acknowledged that no suspicious materials were found. They pose no danger. The military statement provided no evidence that the kite had been deliberately sent toward Israeli territory. And, and even if they did, they're fucking kites with some flammables on them. Like, that's not hard to deal with.
Right.
Right.
Here's the thing. If they really wanted to know if the kites were trouble or not, they have drones.
Yeah.
They can find out.
Before they even fucking made it anywhere. Like,
right. So that should tell you this is bullshit.
Yeah.
But I was this more, and they know that. But
and how many violations of the ceasefire have Israel done? They've killed at least 1,000 people, wounded 4,000 more. Like, this is just fucking a bullshit. Like, I don't even like saying, well, Israel says, because, like, that's just starting with a lie, But, like, this is the fucking reality. Like, that these children are having to fucking deal with, man. Like, I mean, it definitely struck a chord with, the pro-Palestine community. Like, as I said, if we're calling these drones, I think Israel is winning the drone front. Like, I think we're gonna be all right. So, but I found this. This is from UNRWA, right? And this was back in 2015, Care Bear. Right? 1,000 Gaza school students fly kites in solidarity with Japanese earthquake survivors. This all the way is fucking wretched fucking lizard person Ben Gavir, who's talking about how he's bragging about, being in the same seat that the director of the UNRWA Institute used to sit. These terrorists must be expelled. The ones that supported kids flying kites in solidarity with other people struggling.
Right.
Like, again, children, Gaza children go for world record kite flying. Like, this is a standard. This is why when I was like, this is a thing in Palestine. Like, kites are a big thing. We'll get to why in a second, but like, it's like a very common thing there. So, and this was just heartbreaking, right? Like, this child having to destroy his kites, Like, Collin, you deal with children. Imagine one of your children was having to fucking do this with any of their prized possessions. You'd be fucking devastated. Like, and the amount of maturity that these kids have already is crazy. This
Right.
is Muhammad Ahmad al-Mafti.
They can afford to have a tantrum in
Yes.
that case.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Already. And it's just like the one thing that I'm a little bit of joy for like a couple of seconds is destroyed.
Yeah. Like, so this is Muhammad Ahmad al-Mafti. His father was killed. I mean, seeking aid. Right? Like, And in the video, he says, so that Netanyahu is satisfied, so that Katz is satisfied, Trump is satisfied. They want to deprive us of the things we love. I swear my heart is breaking. Absolutely it is, child. Like, you're being forced to fucking live in a situation that no child should ever have to fucking be in. Like, ever. It's fucking despicable shit, dude. I found this from Maha Husseini. 2 weeks ago, Nazi, my first nephew, flew a kite for the first time in his life. He's 12, however, and he should have learned how to fly kites years ago, but when he was old enough to learn, the genocide began. For the next 3 years, the things he learned were how to cut firewood with his father for cooking, collect water, and move from one shelter to another. Earlier this month, we went to the beach together as a family. In every break he took from swimming, I noticed him watching boys flying kite. Nazi, I called, look around. If you see anyone selling kites, let's get you one. His eyes lit up, he jumped up and started asking around. We couldn't find anyone selling one, and just as he came back disappointed, I called over a boy flying a black and white kite. Where did you buy it? I asked. Do you want one? He asked back. He told us he made the kites himself from nylon and sticks and sold them to earn a little pocket money. He offered us the kite for very little, so we got it. For the next few hours, I had to reach back into my own childhood to teach Nazi how to fly it. Every time I felt I let out more string and the kite climbed higher, he would jump and shout, higher, higher. I hadn't seen my little genius this excited in a long time. Nazi isn't easily impressed by ordinary children's toys. He's the kind of kid who would rather take things apart and fix them, especially electronics, or sit watching how-to videos. At one point, laughed, he said, wow, how beautiful it is to drive something in the sky. He knew drive wasn't quite the right word, but I knew exactly what he meant. As I expected, the kite didn't stay the way he had bought it. The next day, he asked his mother to show him YouTube videos on how to make kites. Then he rebuilt his own. He used different nylon. He glued a Palestinian flag onto it, which is a fucking defiant act in and of itself, as we've covered. And he wrote Gaza on every side, preparing it for our next trip to the beach. But yesterday, his parents told him he couldn't fly it outside the house. Why? He asked. I'm not sure what they told him, but I'm sure they couldn't put into words how Israel's prime minister and defense minister have themselves threatened intensified bombing and forced evacuations of areas in Gaza where children are spotted flying kites. Because after all, how do you explain to a 12-year-old that one of the world's most powerful militaries is designating paper kites as weapons of war in a completely devastated area? I also found this. That, like, again, you know, Israeli defense minister has ordered the army to attack any child in Gaza who flies a kite, the most popular game among Gaza's children for years now, because of the siege and the ruined economy. The order did not stop there. He also instructed the army to expel the residents of any area a child launches a kite from, and to destroy it on the grounds that the army considers this game a military act. This comes after Israeli found kites that had slipped from children's hands and drifted into the Gaza envelope settlements. They posed no threat, but Hebrew media and the Israeli opposition party seized on them as an election issue to attack Netanyahu's government. See, they've done this play before. Okay, that's why I wanted to bring this tweet specifically, of, like, you know, threatening Netanyahu's government's power, right? Because he isn't going far enough. Right. You know? Like, it's how they got him out of office the first time. You know? So, like, he knows the fucking game. So if they say this shit, you know, he's already scared. But to close this out, I found a bunch of Palestinian art about it, and, like, there's something about, like, Palestinian artists, man, they just can, like, cut through all the bullshit, you know, like, in a way that I feel like words can't do, you know, like, this fucking image, man, is just like so powerful to me. Like, you know, like all of these images that come out of Palestine in general, you know. And whenever I see that shit, I try to share accounts sharing it because it really is powerful stuff. Here's another one. So this is by Abu Hamed, right? Who this is a literal art installation that he calls KITES, right? Like this is a big thing in Gaza. But Abu Hamed described the kites as seemingly lifeless while still carrying a yearning for freedom by grounding an object associated with flight. The work transforms the kite into a reflection of confinement and the desire to move freely. So, like, he has them attached to, like, metal poles so that they can't fly. But anyway, Collin, we've covered this poem before. During the passing of Rafat al-Arir.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was important to bring again. You know, he writes, if I must die, you must live to tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth and some strings, make it white with a long tail, so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking heaven in the eye, awaiting his dad who left in a blaze, and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself, sees the kite, my kite you made, flying up above, and thinks for a moment an angel is there, bringing back love. If I must die, let it bring hope, let it be a table. So, and I forget who wrote this poem. I couldn't find it offhand. I'm sure someone will let me know. But let the children fly their kites, let their dreams follow them into the sky, and let them grow up free. So, I mean, I'm sure, you know, I've said all the things you would probably say, but you're welcome to add to some stuff if you want. But it's just fucking
what more needs
sad,
to be
man.
said?
I know. It's just like fucking somebody's got to do some shit, dude. You know? Like, and I'm afraid no one has the power capable. You know? Like, this is going to take a world power actively fucking getting off their fucking ass and, like, doing some shit. And pulling triggers in the right direction. Because I don't think shit changes either way. Like, unless there's actual consequences here. You know, and everyone wants to fucking play the, like, you know, play defense and, like, you know, wait for, it's like, now's the time, guys. So, but certainly talking about the horrors of fucking Israel gets us, you know, shadow banned to all hell. So if you want to support our work, you can go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network or scan the QR code on your screen. But otherwise, just like share the video, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a like. Allegedly, all those things help the algorithm, and you know, leave some words in the comments. And otherwise, thanks for watching. Well, sorry for the downer, guys. I apologize. But
That's
important. Well, let me pull up the calendar while we check in with chat. And, you know, hopefully people enjoy the show. I think Indy plans on doing some stuff with Jesse. You might even get a double dose of Jesse. So y'all are welcome to go watch that tomorrow, I think. Either tomorrow or next week, one of the two. But, you know, go check out An American Tradition. I think Indy's got it on the calendar. I'm going to link the calendar in chat. Guys, it's one of the best ways you can keep up with what we're doing. Indy updates it every week. So, you know, you can check in with it and see for yourself. But otherwise, same times as usual. You know, Angel and Friends on Friday and Saturday. You know, you can go check out the Independent Review if you don't do that normally. It's some good stuff over there as well. And, like Tuesdays, Indie News Now, like Sundays, boats, although we won't have one this Sunday, I don't think. So Indy's about to start traveling and whatnot, so we'll probably miss that. But we'll probably be back with a Rumble only boats the following Sunday. I think that's about it, Care Bear, right? Anything I'm missing?
Yep.
Be back next Wednesday for our silly little show.
Sure.
I
guess I can make it.
You're like, I guess, whatever, But well, take care of yourself, fam. And remember, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
Have a good week.
There's a difference between peace and liberation, is there not? You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct? Have peace and be enslaved.
Yes.
So peace isn't the answer.
No.
Liberation is the answer.